So, hi everyone, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
So, yesterday we did till clause 11 and we'll finish off with schedule 1 today and also start with schedule 2. We already got a ton of information yesterday as well. How much have you all revised till now? Are you at par? Like, how much have you revised till now? Till clause 11, till clause 5, till clause 6? Yes,
Only
revised.
revised a bit only. I'm saying.
Till when? Till where? If you'll not revise, then there won't be any point. You'll then quickly forget everything. We are going to have our test on probably Friday. Friday we'll be having our test. So you have today and tomorrow. You have today and tomorrow. We are going to have test on Friday. Maybe on Friday I'll take half session, probably hour or one or 1.5 hour, and then we'll have a test on tax audit and professional ethics. So when will you revise then? Hmm. Chalo. I really want you all to perform good in test. Take test seriously. Take test as if this is the exam. So revise. So many times I'm telling you what's the point when I'm asking you how much of the information have you got till now. That is to make you realize that how much revision you have to make, how much of amount of revision that you need to do. If you're not revising, then what's the point? Chalo, we'll start with promoter, director. If you want, I can also revise it for you.
Okay, sir.
You want me to revise it? Fine, we'll revise yesterday's class first, then we can move it. So, clause 7. Clause 7 dealt with advertisement of professional attainment or services you're advertising that or using any designation other than chartered accountant and using where on four ways, that is professional documents, on letterheads, on your visiting cards, or on your signboards. On professional documents, visiting cards, letterhead, or signboard. So I told you what, whenever these four things you see in the question, you will definitely refer or mention clause 7 of part 1 of schedule 1. And exceptions are if it is the degree of a university which is established in India by law or recognized by central government, or is a title which is recognized by the council or by the central government of title of any institute of chartered accountant or any other institute. So that must be recognized by central government or recognized by the council, provided that you can also advertise through write up, and write up guidelines we need to see further. And then there are certain guidelines by the council under clause 7 which dealt with what first was with respect to other designation. So other designation we learned what, that you cannot use tax consultant, cost accountant, company secretary, corporate lawyer, MP, MLA. All these designation you cannot use, except you can use what, insolvency professional and registered valuer under section 247. And then with respect to qualification of certain institutions, so you can write certain foreign institute membership if you are a member of certain institute which is in foreign. However, it should be recognized by the council, and the examples given which is been recognized by the council are South African Institute of Chartered Accountant. One was with respect to Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Ireland, and one was with respect to ICAEW. Then date of setting up a practice, you cannot mention practice as advocate. You can practice, however, it should be permitted by Bar Council of India. And in that particular case, you cannot use both the designation, that is designation of chartered accountant and designation of your advocate simultaneously. Similarly, the same goes for company secretary, cost management, and accountant. You can practice in as a company secretary, cost management, accountant, however, cannot use both designations simultaneously, and you will be deemed to be carrying out full-time practice only. Then notice in the press relating to the success in an examination. So yesterday Nupur cleared IAS, and therefore we saw what, that yes, I as a principal of Nupur can publish the same about clearing my article um, in an examination, and also give the name, school address, local background, examination that she passed, all India rank that she secured, or any prize or any place gained as a examiner, and then the also my name as a principal, firm name, and the town in which the principal practice may also be published. Then reports and certificate, we saw what reports and certificate, it is generally seen that it could lead to indirect publicity, or your report can come into the eyes of the notice, or it can come into the notice of the public in general, and therefore the report and certificates ought to be what, circulated limited for the purpose which is being required. And then appearance of CAs on electronic media, we saw what, television, films, electronic media, or broadcast or internet, you can appear on these platforms and also mention about yourself as a chartered accountant, and also mention about your firm name. However, no exaggerated claim or professional achievement should be allowed to be told in those platforms. See, however, one thing more was mentioned was, if you are being appointed in a place of local or national importance, then institute wants you to publicize the same. Institute wants you that it is desirable by the institute to publicize about the membership of the institute, which will lead to ultimately suitable publicity of the institute and its members in general. And then members giving talks or lectures, like such as TED talks, or what we saw is attending any sort of conferences, then in that case they could tell them as a chartered accountant only and only if they are acting in the capacity of a CA. However, no reference of the firm name shall be given. And what we saw in the question, that when the question was dealing with like Ministry of Textile, or the question was with respect to budget proposals, um, appearing on television on budget proposals was introduced to the viewers on the basis of biodata furnished by him, so on television. So you could say the public in general is when the target audience is public in general. Then we saw what, that second last point, that firm name will not be allowed. And however, there the questions also mentioned that you were using any designation other than chartered accountant, also you were advertising your professional achievement. So overall clause 7 was triggering. And then organizing training courses, seminar, etc. for his staff. Yes, I told you with the example of what, accounting software which is now being implemented from 1st April 2023, dealing with what, audit trail, that is software needs to have audit trail in all case of all companies. So example, in that this case I told my all staffs, articles, employees to have a training on this. Then and I then also I can invite my neighboring chartered accountant staffs, my clients accountants, all other people. However, the point to be noted here is that it should not lead to undue publicity. That is, I should not be giving my name of the firm, or the name of the CA in any sort of any booklet or document issued in connection therewith. Then articles, writing articles or letters to the press, they also said that yes, you can use the chartered accountant or chartered accountant description. We'll also give reference of clause 6, where writing articles, publishing articles, firm name is also allowed. Size of signboard, already we discussed that yes, it should be visible enough, should not be too big, should not be too short, and should not be using glow signboards. Name of the chartered accountant as a template, as a nameplate, you can use that in front of your home, but could not use your firm name. Public announcement with details of directors, public announcement with details of directors was with respect to what, that you must give details about your directorship in other companies, as it might be required by the SEBI regulation, that you have to give your details about the directorships held in other companies in the case of offer document, or in the case of any document by the company. However, point note that your partnerships with other firms has not to be given. You any firm details, partnership details should not be given in any documents of the company. And also, before appointment or after the appointment in any company as a director, you need to communicate to the company that before inserting my name as a chartered accountant in any of the documents of the company, you need to first take my permission. You need to please first communicate with me before inserting my name as a chartered accountant in any documents of the company. It is the responsibility of the chartered accountant. And then network forms, you will see guidelines separately. Use of logo, we saw that yes, the logo ought to be the background should be white, the font color should be blue, and green tick mark upside down. The green shows growth, blue shows corporate strength, and it should not be tilted or any sort of that manner. Logo should be and should be only like this. Then we saw questions, and then we'll jumped on to clause 8, where we saw what you cannot accept a position as an auditor of previous which was previously held by another auditor without first communicating to him in writing. So objective of this clause was to warrant any incoming circumstances because of which the auditor as an auditor I should not accept the audit. And then we saw what three circumstances which clearly saw that you cannot accept the audit. For the first two, in the first two cases, if you accept the audit, you will be held GPM under clause 8. The first one being non-compliance of section 139, 140, 141 of the Companies Act, and the second one was with respect to if the undisputed audit fee is not being paid by the auditee, but the exception is sick unit. And third case was issuance of a qualified report. So in the last case, qualified report, yes, you can accept the audit. However, it is to be noted that it should not, the qualification should not be for a justifiable reasons. If you feel so that the qualification is for good and valid reason, then yes, you can refuse to accept the audit. You should request to accept the audit. Then we saw following would be in the normal course provide such evidence, that is yes, the ways in which the communication need to be made. So first was with respect to communication of letter through RPAD, then by hand against a written acknowledgement, and third one was through in a registered email address or last known official email address, registered email address or a last known official email address, and lastly being UDIN to be updated by the institute accordingly. And then premises, if found log firm not found at the given registered address. So in both the cases, it will be deemed to have been delivered if we did the requisite whatever the thing was required. And then special audit under Income Tax Act, it is can be considered as a healthy practice if you communicate the same with the previous statutory auditor. You have to communicate with the tax auditor, previous tax auditor, but yes, if you communicate with the previous statutory auditor, it will be deemed to be a healthy practice. And then council laid the guidelines, detailed guidelines on the subject of tax audit. This was with respect to communication is required in the case of all sorts of audit, be it internal audit, tax audit, statutory audit, concurrent audit, whatever sort of audit, clause 8 will apply. It is not like it is only applicable in case of statutory audit. Then communication in case of assignments done by other professionals. So this we saw that it will be a healthy practice if we communicate the same. And then lack of time in acceptance of government audit could be an important question that might come in the case of like government audits or bank audits, where the time is very limited. You can accept the audit, but on a conditional acceptance basis only. That is, you will communicate first with the previous auditor. However, without waiting for him to reply, you will accept the audit on conditional basis, condition being that subject to the final acceptance. That is, finally you will accept after receiving the reply from the previous auditor, and you can deny to continue the audit, or you can deny to complete the audit if you feel so. Then implied communication, whether it was allowed, where the case what we saw was respondent being aware about the fact that already appellant is aware about the fact that I have taken his client, therefore he know that previous communication has been made. This implied communication is not allowed. Then clause 9 we saw what accepts an appointment as an auditor without first ascertaining that the section 139, 140, 141 of the Companies Act has been duly complied with. If not, then you will be held GPM. The point to be noted here is that section 140 subsection 1 requires you to, before resignation or before you resign as an auditor, requires you to communicate to the board, communicate to the company, communicate to the ROC, and in the case of government company also requires you to communicate to C and AG. In professional ethics, we saw what before resigning, you also need to send the communication to ICAI BOD as well as ICAI Institute as well. The copy of such communication which you filed with the company, that copy of the communication that you filed to BOD also need to be communicated to ICAI. And similarly, even though if you are not resigning but the auditor is being removed by the company, in the case of let's say section 140 subsection 4, though he was willing to get reappointed, but he failed to get reappointed, and therefore this copy shall also be filed with the institute. and that's, yeah, that is what is important, that we need to see that the we are filing with the institute a copy of the statement which may have been sent to the management of the company for circulation among the shareholders. So whatever we saw, we circulated section 140 subsection 4 representation of the auditor, right of representation is having, and therefore he could give letter to the shareholders, and that letter copy shall also be submitted to the institute ICAI. And then we saw certain questions with respect to section 139 subsection 8, where if at all the compliance is not being done, then will be held guilty under clause 9. Clause 10 dealt with you are charging your fee on a percentage basis, that is on the basis of percentage of profit or any sort of event contingent upon the findings or result of such employment. So fees charged on the basis of percentage or which is contingent upon the findings or result of such employment, you will be held GPM under clause 10, except as permitted under regulation. And regulation 192 permits you to, regulation 192 permits you to accept fees basis on the percentage of profit or basis upon the contingent upon findings or result of such employment. And what we learned, what cooperative society, we went for debt recovery but could not do the same. We went for debt recovery but could not do the same, therefore we went for liquidation. But before liquidation, someone suggested that go for cost optimization, and therefore we employed management consultant services, and he increased our value, thereby also leading us to go for IPO FPO fundraising. So cooperative society debt recovery services, liquidation services, cost optimization services, management consultancy services, valuer, registered valuer or valuer services, and fundraising services, all in all these cases exceptions are covered, that is you can accept fees as a percentage of profit or contingent upon certain events. And then lastly, we learn for clause 11, where you cannot engage in any business or occupation other than chartered accountancy profession unless permitted by the council so to engage. So again, permitted by the council is permitted under regulation 190A. Regulation 190A, remember this regulation number. And also there was a provision with respect to you being entitled as a director in a company, but please note that the director should not be managing director or whole-time director unless he or any of his partner, that is the director need not be whole-time director or managing director, and also he cannot or he or any of his partner cannot be the auditor of that company. He or any of his partner in the firm cannot be auditor of such company. Then regulation 190, we saw what the permissions being granted. Generally we saw Beti chartered accountant hai, and she is more or less doing is an employee in a CA firm, or you can say is doing or carrying out agricultural activity. Beti chartered accountant hai, BETI hai H. So B for books, writing, publishing of books, articles, and editorship of professional journals. Then E for examiner, you can be an examiner, head examiner, moderator, paper setter, valuer of paper on any exam, and you can also attend classes for any of the examination. Then T for tutorship, so private tutorship is allowed, and part-time tutorship is allowed subject to condition that you are part-time tutoring only in coaching organization of the institute. If you are part-time tutoring in any other institute, then you will be required to have a special permission from the institute before you become part-time tutor. And then I for insurance, so life insurance agency, you can have that agency for the purpose of limited purpose of renewal commission only. And then you can also act as surveyor or loss assessor in Insurance Act 1938. And then betis ye hai H से for from H we had what, holding of public offices such as MP MLA, and honorary office leadership in non-commercial organization or charitable educational organizations. And then CA in practice as a employee in a firm, and also owning an agricultural land and carrying out agricultural activity in that agricultural land, that is also allowed to promote farming in India. And then recovery consultation, you are recovery consultation or notary of notary public, justice of peace, or special executive magistrate. These all other 4 points are also valid, that is covered under general permission, general granted permission by the institute. Then specific resolution we didn't see, but let's just see now what does it say. Specific resolution, that you have to obtain the specific and prior approval of the council in each case, that is when you are becoming a full-time or part-time employee in any business concern. So if you are engaging any as a business concern, either full-time or part-time, provided that the member or his relative do not hold substantial interest in any such concerns. So institute will see what, if your member, if you or any of your relative already hold any substantial interest in any such concern, then they will probably not allow you. That is what this means. But in case there is no such substantial interest either of you or your relative, then institute might allow you, but before that you should take prior approval before having any sort of interest as either part-time employee or full-time employee. Then full-time or part-time employment in non-business concerns also you need to take institute's permission, whether business concern or non-business concern, doesn't matter. And then office of MD or WTD, again we saw in the proviso there was a exception in the proviso itself that yes, you can be a director, but you should not be a managing director or whole-time director, and for that purpose you need to obtain specific prior approval of the institute. Then interest in the family business concern, if you are involving yourself in your family business, then also institute will require you to take permission. Interest in an educational institution, again prior permission is required. Part-time or full-time lectureship for courses other than relating to institute's examination conducted under the auspice of the institute or the councils or the branches. So these are part-time or full-time lectureship for courses not relating to chartered accountancy, that is other than those relating to institute's examination and conducted under the auspice of the institute or the council or the branches. For this also you need to take prior approval. Then part-time or full-time tutorship under any educational institution other than coaching institute of the ICI. Editorship of journals other than professional journals. Already we saw what only professional journal editorship is allowed. Apart from that, you will be required to take prior approval of ICI. Any other sort of business or occupation which the executive committee deems fit that yes, they can grant you the permission to engage in such kind of occupation or business, then that will also be covered in point 9. Yes, they can grant you the permission for any other sort of occupation or business. And because of this point only, I told you what, just remember first 14 points which is being generally granted by the institute, and remaining we could either leave it as residual points in the special permission. Clear? So let's just see now part-time or full-time tutorship under any educational institution other than coaching organization of the institute. So we just now saw what you will be required to take prior approval of the institute. So part-time or full-time tutorship under any educational institution other than coaching organization of the institute, permission can be granted by the institute. Special permission will be granted by the institute subject to the condition, important MCQ, that the total hours devoted per week shall not exceed 25 hours. Total hours devoted to the institute, to the coaching per week should not exceed 25 hours a week in order to be able to undertake the attestation function. That is, in order for you to focus on your auditing, in order for you to focus on your CA practice, you need to only give what, 25 hours per week. 25 hours per week. So how much is it coming? 25 by 7, 3.5 hours, right? Motamat 3.5 hours, you can give 3.57 hours per day, 25 hours per week. Then let's come to, as regards the question of permitting member in practice to be a director or promoter director, subscriber to the MOA AOA of the company, including board managed company. So we have decided as an institute, they have decided what, to be you to be yourself as a director in a company. Already we know that what, that yes, you can be a director, but you should not be a managing director or whole-time director. In essence, what they want to say, that you should not be an executive director, but you can be a non-executive director. You must be knowing, aware about the difference between executive and non-executive director. Executive director is kind of a director which is full-time employed by the company, that is, you are being employed full time by the company. You are more or less an employee of the company only. And non-executive director, you need not be an employee of the company, you can just give your time as and when, attend the meetings of the company, enjoy the sitting fees, and that's it, give your opinions also in the board meetings. So yes, you can be a director simpliciter. Director simpliciter means an ordinary or simply director who is not a managing director or whole-time director. That means what, director simpliciter means what, simply if you can say, is non-executive director. So you can be a non-executive director, you can be a director simpliciter, and is required only in the board meetings of the company and not paid any remuneration except for attending such meeting. That means you will not be paid any remuneration because you are not an employee, right? You can be a non-executive director, you can be a director simpliciter, and you can enjoy sitting fees, but cannot accept remuneration because then you will be an employee of the company. A member in practice is permitted generally to be a director solicitor in any company, including a board managed company, and as such, he is not required to obtain any specific permission of the council in this behalf. So that we already know, because this is a point which is already covered in the proviso to clause 11, right? So proviso itself allows you to be a director solicitor. So we need not require any specific prior approval of the institute. However, note this the question comes from here. No restriction, but Moti expected not to jeopardize their independence requirement, and for that purpose, institute has not allowed you to be an auditor of a subsidiary company, can't be a director of its holding company. That means I told you yesterday also that if you are a holding company, if you are a director in holding company, then you cannot be a auditor in subsidiary company. You cannot be auditor in a subsidiary company. This I already told you yesterday, because you will be having influence in the subsidiary company, right? So in order to avoid any jeopardization of the independence requirement, institute requires you not to be a director in the holding company, and if you are a director in the holding company, then you should not be a auditor in any of its subsidiary company. Then we saw all the questions as well yesterday. We are left with the last 2 points, B and C, and these are important, very very important. These are the new points which was being inserted by the institute in July attempt, and this point was also asked in Jan 21 attempt. So promoter and promoter director. Now the point here is, we already saw what, that yes, you can be a director simpliciter, right? You can be a director simpliciter, but now can you be a promoter director? What do you mean by promoter director? A promoter director is a kind of director which promoted the company as well, like sort of you are also a subscriber to the MOA and also being a promoter of the company. So here the point that we need to see is that you are not fully engaged in the company as a full time. You are not fully engaged as the company. You just promoted the company, and therefore yes, institute allows you to be a promoter or promoter director, provided that you are a director simpliciter and not a MD or WTD as a promoter. So there is no bar for a member to be a promoter or signatory to the MOA AOA of any company. That means you can be a subscriber to the MOA AOA, you can be a promoter, you can be a promoter director. However, you should be director simpliciter. There is also no bar for such a promoter signatory to be a director simpliciter of that company. You can be a director simpliciter, irrespective of whether the object of the company include areas which fall within the scope of profession of CA. And why this line is being inserted, I'll tell you. Just tell me one point. Do you think that we as a chartered accountant in a firm, we as a chartered accountant can incorporate ourselves as a company and do the audit? Can we incorporate ourselves as a company and do the audit, or
No,
do
sir.
we? No, right? So where is the prohibition? Reference. Yes.
143.
145.
143.
143. 141 subsection 3. If you remember, the first point says what? No corporate, it should not be a body corporate, an exception being LLP. So you can be a partnership firm, you can be LLP, but you cannot be a body corporate in order to do the audit in the case of company. So company audit, you cannot do the audit if you are a body corporate, excluding LLP. Now institute allowed you earlier in the case of from July attempt 2021 attempt onwards, institute allowed you to form a corporate and do the practice in that corporate form. That means institute allowed you to do corporate form of practice only and only if you are not doing attestation functions through that corporate form. You are not auditing, or you are not sort of providing any reports or certificates. You are doing what? You are in essence providing management consultancy services. So if you are as a chartered accountant providing any sort of management consultancy service, which we'll also see in section 2 clause 2(4), what all services are covered, there is a huge list of MCS services, and if you are providing those services, then yes, you are now being allowed to undertake this practice in corporate form as well. Are you getting this? But it should not be, you should not be doing any sort of audit or attestation function. You should not be employed in or doing this audit and attestation function through this firm name or through this corporate name from which you are doing the practice. So that is why they are here said that promoter or signatory to be a director simpliciter of that company, you can be a promoter of the company irrespective of the objective, that whether or not the objective of the company includes the objectives that relates to profession of CA. That means objective of the company can be only and only if management consultancy service providing. That is, my company's objective is to provide only management consultancy service, and we as a chartered accountant have formed this company. Then in that case also you are allowed to be a director simpliciter. And even if this is not the case, then also you are allowed to be a director simpliciter. Then why have they written this, that even if manage objective of the company is not the profession of a chartered accountant, is because of the fact that you are then allowed to be a managing director or whole-time director as well in those companies where the object of the company is only with respect to management consultancy service providing and not doing audit and attestation function. That is wherever the company form of practice is being allowed by the institute, and therefore you are yourself is as a promoter, you are yourself as a managing director or whole-time director of that company, right? You will only be managing the company, and therefore you are being allowed to be a managing director, whole-time director, which we'll see later in the guideline, which you'll see it's not given here, but I am just giving a heads up, telling you in advance that then you can be allowed to be a managing director, whole-time director of only that company. Which company I'm talking about? Company which is being allowed to do corporate form of practice. Are we clear, or any doubt? Yes. Again, here members are not required to obtain specific permission. Any doubt?
No, sir.
So let's come to the last point of clause 11, member in practice in a HUF, doing business. So you are in a Hindu undivided family and you acquired certain interest in your family business. So as a proprietorship firm, you got certain interest in the family business, or as a partnership firm, or in the name and style of a HUF as its karta or a member. So you became a karta, new karta, or you become proprietorship firm, or you got certain interest in your partnership firm. So it would be necessary for the members to provide evidence that yes, I I got this interest in the family business. However, this is only in because of my inheritance or because of my succession or because of the partition of the family. I did not got the interest because I am being involved in the HUF business. So you need to prove to the institute that you are not being involved in the HUF business. In essence, you need to provide evidence that you are not involved in the business. You will not be involved in the business, and you just got the interest in the family business as a inheritance or succession or partition of the family business, and to show that you are not and you will not be engaged actively in the such business. So institute could ask you a certain declaration in the prescribed format. You need to fill those details and tell the institute that no, I have been not been involved in this business and I will not be involved. A member in practice engaged as a karta of HUF doing family business will be within the limit prescribed by council if he makes investment from the funds pertaining to HUF only. So what does the last point say is that yes, you can make investment also as an HUF. You will not be deemed to be like engaged properly in the HUF family business, but provided the fact that you should invest only from the funds pertaining to HUF only, and you should not be actively engaged in the management of said business. Then you can invest those funds of the HUF in any sort of business, and you should not be actively engaged in the business. You are just for the purpose of investment. You are an investor and not a manager, not actively engaged in the management of the said business. So you need to remember this point. This can be asked in exam. They have not yet asked till now. So if you are gaining any interest in family business concern either as a proprietorship firm, partnership firm, or in the name or as a karta or as its member, then you need to prove to the institute that you did not get this because of being actively engaged in the business, but you got only because of the inheritance succession or any sort of partition in the HUF, and you were not actively engaged and you will not be actively engaged in the said business. You can invest the funds of the HUF in any sort of business, but you cannot actively involve yourself as a management in the said business. Clear till clause 11 we have done. Now let's finish off clause 12 and then schedule 1 part 1 will be over. Clause 12. So if you allow a person not being a moti in practice or a member not being his partner. So except these persons, if you allow any sort of person to sign on your behalf or on behalf of your firm any sort of balance sheet, profit and loss account report or financial statements, then you will be held GPM. You will be held guilty of professional misconduct. So if you allow any person to sign on your behalf or on behalf of your firm, that is in the name of your firm, you allow any person to sign balance sheet, profit and loss account report or financial statements, you will be held GPM under clause 12 of part 1 of schedule 1. So who all are allowed that you can allow to sign on behalf of your firm, to sign on balance sheet, profit and loss report or financial statement? You can allow moti in practice, you can allow any other chartered accountant in practice. Similarly, you can allow member not being his partner. That means what? You if you can allow your partner chartered accountant, your partner, that means CA, member means what? CA, and your partner. So if you allow any person who is not a moti in practice, or if you allow any member who is not your partner, then you will be held GPM. What you can relate this clause to, and I know I will receive certain doubts because of this. Can we allow any chartered accountant in practice to sign on our behalf, on our firm name, any balance sheet, profit and loss account report or financial statement? Because we also saw what, that you cannot allow any person to act in our firm name, act in firm name of our, unless he is a chartered accountant and is either our member, either our partner or our employee. That means he needs to be our partner or he needs to be an employee. But that is with respect to what? Representing our firm. Representing our firm. Here, for us to allow this person, for us to allow this another chartered accountant in practice to sign, we have to, as far as I been aware about this in practicality life, this is being done through submitting POA, power of attorney, that in the case where a chartered accountant is not, like, it's not feasible for him to do so, then he can allow another chartered accountant in practice to do so, but that is under very rare circumstantial cases, and mostly this will be the case. A member who is his partner can sign your balance sheet, profit and loss account, any sort of report or any sort of report on financial statement. And just remember this, that any sort of financial statement here, the financial statement or the reports that we refer here in this clause obviously means the financial statement and reports as ultimately finalized and submitted to the outside authorities. That means which is not internally circulated. That means it could be any sort of report, any sort of financials, any sort of certificates, any sort of certificate report which requires CA certification, CA signing. Is there any doubt in clause 12? So I'll just quickly ask one question then, if not. Yes, so tell me. Yes, tell me, Tanveer. I engaged I engaged a CA as my assistant to assist me in one of the major big projects. I engaged him as my assistant to assist me in one of the major big project, to sign, and that will be signed as a report. To sign the report, ultimately the report will be issued and he will be signing. Since he will be doing all the work, he'll be not only assisting me but ultimately finalizing and doing all the work. So I engaged one assistant. What do you think, Tanvir? Will I be held GPM? Yes, tell me. Mic is not working fine. Yes, Mehak.
Sir, he is not the partner, so no, it will be held GPA.
He should be a partner, right? Then he'll be, if not, then he'll be held guilty.
GPA.
So, Mehak, tell me quickly, if I engage another employee as a chartered accountant and engaged her for the purpose of one of my client asked me to solve their problem with respect to cost optimization. So I engage another chartered accountant who is like expert in this as a management consultant, and I engaged as an employee chartered accountant and told her to optimize the cost for the client. Yes, Mehak, is this allowed or not?
He cannot sign the document, but yeah, it's allowed.
Why cannot he sign the document?
Because he should be a partner
But what
or a
sort
person
of
having.
document will he be signing in this particular assignment? Is it a financial statement? Is it a balance sheet? Is it a proper profit or loss?
No.
No. Then can he sign?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Financial statement finalized. Okay, हाँ. Financial statements नहीं sign.
So everyone got the point or not? Firstly,
Yes.
the important question that might come from here is that other than partner, if you are engaging any sort of employee chartered accountant or any sort of assistant chartered accountant to sign financial statements, then you will be held GPM. And but if it is not financial statements that he is signing or is not the financial statements on which he is working, then you will not be held GPM. Clear?
सर हेलो सर
Yeah.
सर थोड़ा सा डाउट है यहाँ
Yes. Yes. बोलो.
सर थोड़ा सा स्क्रॉल अप कीजिए हाँ सर यहाँ पे बोला है कि लाइक इट इज सेड लाइक पर्सन नॉट बीइंग ए मेंबर इन प्रैक्टिस कैन डू sign right as you told with the power of attorney and all so he can do right.
Yeah, we have to then sign for another chartered accountant in practice to
So
allow him to sign
the, in
on
the
our
first
behalf.
question, the engaged CA is assuming that he is a practicing chartered accountant, so he can sign the balance sheet and all.
But then we need to allow that na. In general, what I told you, that in general you will see this case whether he is a partner or not, and if not nothing given, you cannot assume he is a C in practice also, first of all.
Between
And
that, it
second,
is or, so that's why I confused between member or member not being a partner.
yeah, that is what I am telling, that if even if it's given, then this is under very rare circumstances, and you need to see what CA being your partner or not. CA should be your partner, then only you can allow under clause 12.
Okay, if any question come like this, so we'll be
Yeah, just
again.
clear your heads. Do not involve too much. Do not go into much depth. Just remember this, that if he is your partner, then it is allowed. If it's not, is your employee CA or any sort of information other than being a partner given, then you will not allow them to engage or to sign on your firm name as a for balance sheet, profit or loss, or any sort of report on financial statement. You can see, we can see few questions here also. Let's just quickly jump to questions first. So here CA in practice gave power of attorney to employee CA to sign report and financial statement. So this employee CA, whether he is a partner, no. So even if you give POA, then also it will not be allowed. He should be either CA in practice, right? Or should either be my partner CA. Will this be allowed? No. Guilty? Yes. Read section 26 of the Act. No person other than Murthy shall sign document on behalf of the firm. Then employee CA issued,
So,
yeah.
he should be CA in practice and his partner both.
No, in the case if he is my partner, then yes, he can only be a CA as well, like normal CA. But
No,
generally, he'll be my practicing partner only, right?
Yeah, both the conditions should be fulfilled. CA in practice and he should be
No, according to
partner also.
language of the clause, he can be a CA and partner. He must be a CA and partner, need not be a practicing CA. Because it says member not being a partner. Member in practice is not mentioned. But
Okay,
yes,
sir.
practically you'll see that he will be a practicing partner only. Partnership, you will allow anyone to be a partner. You will take anyone as a partner only when he is practicing.
Okay, sir.
Then employee CA issued audit queries. Will this be allowed?
Yes, sir.
Allowed.
Why? Because no signing as such is required on any sort of financial statements, right? Employee CA attended tribunal as authorized representative for client.
Yes,
Allowed?
it is also allowed.
An employee CA issued stock certificate or production certificate or network certificate, net worth certificate.
Not allowed.
This
Allowed.
will not be allowed, right?
Not allowed.
Any sort of report or certificate which requires signing by CA is issued to outside authority. Should be done by CA himself or by his member partner.
Sir, that is only the report, no? It is related to certificate and all.
Yeah, report means any sort of report or certifications issued to outside authorities. That is what they have also clarified. Any sort of financial statements or reports as ultimately finalized and submitted to outside authorities. So that will include certifications as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So let's just see what all things are allowed. That is, what all such delegations will not attract the provision of this clause. Issue of any audit queries wherever there is no such signing required by the auditor in the case of financial statements, reports, or certificates. So, asking information for issuing of questionnaire, draft letter, forwarding draft observation on draft financial statements observations, initiating and stamping of vouchers schedules. That means certain times firm vouchers could also be signed by the employee chartered accountant or any sort of staff other than chartered accountant. Acknowledging and carrying on routine correspondence with the clients, issuing of memorandum of cash verification and other physical verification, issuing acknowledgements for record produced, raising of bills, attending to routine matters. So all this point you need to remember that yes, it is allowed for you to engage in your CA employee or engage any other sort of staff other than chartered accountant or member partner. So we are done with what? Part 1 of Schedule 1. Part 1, Schedule 1. Right? All 12 clauses. Let's just quickly try. Let's just quickly try to do what? Memorize all these clause numbers. Fine. So I'll tell you some or the other ways through which we can memorize this clause number. So for these 12 clauses, we'll divide into 4 parts. 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, 11, 12. So for these 1, 2, 3, this will be recalling as if rhyming words. So 1 gun, 2 shoe, 3 free. 1 gun, 2 shoe, 3 free. Clear? For 4, 5, 6, you will be using our hands. For 7, 8, 9, again we'll be recalling through rhyming words, that is 7 heaven, 8 communicate, 9 139. 7 heaven, 8 communicate, 9 139, and 10 11 12 we'll be using certain sort of figures that we saw yesterday also. For 10 bad ball, 11 World Trade Center, and 12 we'll see. So for 1 2 3 we saw what? 1 gun, 2 shoe, 2 shoe, 3 free. So from the gun we just point it in front of a person and tell him to speak his name. What's your name? By just pointing out the gun. So gun, by pointing out, you will ask his name. So name, you will be recalling what? You should not allow any person to use your firm name or your name other except when he is your partner or employee, and he should also be a chartered accountant, right? So one gun, two shoe. So for shoe you will have to pay in order for you to get the shoe, right? So shoe, you are making the payment for the shoe. So pay or allow or agree to pay or allow. Three free. So free. Do you remember Three Idiots? Free, right? So if we get anything for free, we directly do what? Accept. We directly accept without thinking of anything because it's free. So we'll accept it, whatever be it. So if you accept or agree to accept that all the clause number three. So three free. Now four you can see here, Char Bottle Vodka, right? This song, if you remember. So you can see what? Four. Now, can you see this? This is a P. I'm using my four fingers to symbolize P, right? So I'm using my hands to symbolize P. P for partnership. Four for partnership. Clause four. P for partnership. Just remember this. P for partnership. Then five. Five. My hand again. Use my hand. Using my hand. I'm securing. Secures. Secures any sort of professional work or service, right? Five secures. And then six. You can remember this with six means a sixer, or you can say sixer means they are able to solicit you in giving arms or any sort of thing. They are able to solicit. So you can relate that six with sixer, or you can also think of six as solicits or six, solicits or six, right? Then seven heaven, eight communicate, nine 139. Seven heaven. So I am the chartered accountant, which I am advertising my professional attendance in front of everyone, that I am telling you all that I am the only chartered accountant who will go to heaven. Rest you all, rest you all will not be able to go to chartered accountant because you were engaged in all sort of manipulative practices in the case of demonetization and all. So I was the only one who held Narendra Modi ji, and therefore I will be only going to heaven. So seven heaven, I am advertising my professional attainments. Eight communicate. So communication with previous auditor. Eight communicate. 8 communicate. And 9 139. 9 139. Section 139, 140, 141 compliance has to be done. 9 139. 10, yesterday we also saw 10 looks like what? 10 looks like bat and ball. 10 looks like bat and ball. So bat and ball game, cricket game of cricket is very contingent game based on results of Ravindra Jadeja, right? So has to be depending on many of the events. So bat ball is a sort of game which is dependent on certain results or events, or is based on profits. 11, can you see this World Trade Center? Here used to be my office, and I was engaged in another business or occupation. So you'll sort of recollect this as in the World Trade Center I was involved in being with any sort of other business or occupation. So 11, you'll try to recollect this 11, right? One office was also here. And then can you see this rabbit looks like 12? If not, then yes, you must look it as 12 only. And my sign is also like 12. Whatever you make out of 12 or keep it as residual clause, you can make any sort of this from this. I have my sign as a rabbit. I sign as my rabbit only, or this rabbit looks like 12. So whatever be it, you cannot sign on behalf or on behalf of the firm. Anyone cannot sign on balance sheet, profit and loss, or financial statement reports. So do we remember all the 12 clauses now? One gun, two shoe, three free. So from shoe, clause two shoe. Shoe for shoe, we do what? Payment. If we get anything for free, we accept three free. Four, can you see the P? Four P for partnership. Five, six, six you will never forget anywhere, right? Seven, advertisement. You are advertising your professional attainments that you will only be able to go to heaven and no one else can go to heaven. Seven heaven. Eight, communicate. And 9 139. 10 fee acceptance of the fee based on profits or based on contingent upon results of certain other events. 11, engagement in any other business or occupation. And 12, sign on financial statements or audit reports. Now let's come to quickly part 2 of schedule 1. Part 2 of schedule 1, you will see clause 1 and clause 2. Just quickly read this both clauses and tell me which clause of part 1 does it relates to. Clause 1 and clause 2 of part 2, which clauses of part 1 does it relates to? Just remember this, that this clause, this part 2 is only applicable in the case of employee chartered accountant. That is a moti which is not a member in practice. That means what? A moti who is an employee, or moti who has not accepted COP, who has not taken COP. Moti not being a member in practice. If he being an employee chartered accountant. Clause 1 and clause 2. Quickly read this and tell me which clause does it relates to.
Clause 2 and clause 3 of part 1.
Yeah, clause 2 and clause 3. Right? Everyone with me?
Yes, sir.
Clause 2 and
2
clause
plus
3.
3.
So
Yes.
just that, remember here we have to apply part 2 of schedule 1 in the case the question talks about employee chartered accountant. Okay? Employee chartered accountant, if it talks about employee chartered accountant, then we will apply what? Part 2 of schedule 1. Part 1 will apply when we are paying any sort of part of the emoluments of the fee, and part clause 2 will apply when we are receiving. So this could be a case. Clause 1 can be, example could be, suppose you are paying for any share in the emoluments of the employment undertaken by him. So suppose I being a chartered accountant, and Mehak told me that, sir, I'll help you in employee in one, as an employee in being one of the multinational corporations. So I'll help you to become an employee of, suppose, Hindustan Unilever Limited, since Mehak is already working there. So I also applied for the same and I got the opportunity. And now Mehak is asking me that you will now have to give first salary to me, first month salary to me. So if I pay or allow or agree to pay directly or indirectly to any share in the emoluments of the employment which I undertook, then I'll be held GPM. Then I'll be held GPM. Clear? I was employed, and from the salary I also gave certain portion to me. But again, here point to be noted is that there is no such restriction if you are paying it to your mother, dependent, friends, etc. out of love, out of affection, right? So you cannot deny your mother to give any sort of gold ornaments that she might ask from your first salary. Or you can deny her by just saying that there is a relationship in procuring or retaining the job and in payment. If you can prove this, that yes, there is a relationship in procuring such sort of job or payment, and this payment is for the consideration of job procurement only, then you can definitely deny your mother from your first salary payment. Clear? So what I meant is that there is no restriction in paying to relatives or friends, but it should not be, it should not be with respect to procurement of the job. It should be out of love, affection, or any sort of other relationship that you have. Clear? Sort of party you can give to friends, and gold you can give to your mother. Then clause 2 will be when I am accepting the part of the fees or part of the salary. Suppose I helped Mehak this time to go from Unilever to go to ITC, and I told her, just because my friend was there in ITC, therefore I helped you, and so now you have to give money to me, any share in your first salary to me. So this time I am accepting any part of fees, profits, or gains from a lawyer, from a chartered accountant, or from a broker that I engaged. If I am accepting all this, and all these three-person, lawyer, chartered accountant, broker, engaged by such company or by such firm or persons or agent or customers of such company, firm or person, by way of commission or gratification. If I'm accepting this commission, if I'm accepting this gratification, then I'll be held GPM. Go through this question. Holds the COP while in employment also. Employment also. Yes. Are you able to follow? Yes or no? Yes. Come on to part 3 now. CA in practice or CA not in practice. Doesn't matter. This part 3 applies to all chartered accountants. Chartered accountants in general, whether in practice or not, shall be deemed to be GPM if you are not a fellow of the institute but you are calling yourself as the fellow. Fellow of the institute means what? FCA. You must be aware about the fact that after becoming a chartered accountant, if you are accepting COP, then you can write ACA, associate chartered accountant, ACA. And after completing 5 years of five consecutive years of practicing, you will be getting what? FCA fellow member. You will become what? Fellow member. Till now, till then, you will be what? Associate member of the institute. So after clearing 5 years, completing 5 consecutive years of being associate member, you will be getting what? Fellow. If you are not the fellow of the institute and you are telling yourself as FCA, then you will be held GPM. Then second clause deals with what? The information that the institute calls for and you are not providing the same. Suppose institute calls you to submit form 108 and you are not submitting, then you are as an article, it doesn't apply to. But again, there are many such forms that we as a chartered accountant also needs to communicate and through submit it to ICI, and they ask and we does not supply the information which was called for or does not comply with the requirements which was asked for by the institute or by the council, or if it's committee, director discipline, BOD, disciplinary committee. BOD here means what? Board of discipline. Board of discipline, we saw that they are right. Do you remember? Director discipline, if he felt that this member is guilty, then he will see that whether he is guilty in schedule 1 or schedule 1 and 2 or schedule 2 only. If only in schedule 1, then he'll forward it to where? He'll forward it to board of discipline or disciplinary committee. Board of discipline, he'll forward it to board of discipline. And if he felt that he is guilty in schedule 2 or schedule 1 and 2 both, then he'll forward it to disciplinary committee. So they will ask them certain information, they can also call for certain information, and if you are not replying the same, if you are not submitting those information, then you will be held GPM under clause 2 as well of part 3 schedule 1. DD, BOD, DC, quality review board, we'll see peer review board, quality review board, they might also ask certain information. We'll see this in peer review chapter, quality review chapter. Or the appellate authority, that we saw that within 90 days, if we are dissatisfied, disagreed with the order of the BOD or DC, then we can go to appellate authority and file the case within 90 days. So if it does not supply the information, then clause 2 will apply. And clause 3 will apply when while inviting professional work from another chartered accountant, that is while accepting the work from another CA, all while responding to the tenders. Do you remember clause 6, clause 7, where we could respond to tenders, we could accept the professional work from chartered accountants, but in order to accept the work from CA, we need to ask the same. And while asking, we provide false information to them. That means we told them that we have 10 articles, but we only have 3 articles. We told them we had 20 staffs as well, but we do not have any staff, or any sort of false information that you gave. This you will be held as GPM under clause 3 of part 3 of schedule 1 133. So part 3, how we can remember is, you just have to remember that it all starts with F, and one by one the letter will start increasing. Letters will start increasing by one letter as you move down. So first was with respect to FCA. If you are not FCA and you are showing yourself as FCA. Second one was if you fail to provide information or supply the information which was asked for or which was called for. Called for by whom? Called for by institute, called for by council, BOD, DC, director discipline, quality review board, appellate authority, right, or regional council. And then this is with respect to false information. So in third, the letter increase. See here 3 letters, then here 4 letters, and here 5 letters. So FCA fail false. FCA fail false. FCA fail false. Can just see the question. While applying for certificate of practice, I did not fill in columns which solicit information about my engagement in another business. So it was the information called for by the institute in the application and I did not provided the same. I did not supply the information which was called for by the institute. Suppose example, you are already engaged in any of the business. After clearing chartered accountancy, many of the chartered accountants do what? Enter into business. Do not practice, do not go for employment. They go for business, right? Now along with business you saw an opportunity to also practice, therefore you apply for COP. Though so therefore while applying for COP in the membership form, in the practicing form, the form to apply for COP, you also have to mention if at all you are engaged in any other business occupation. So that is what it is saying, that while applying for COP you did not tell the institute about your another business occupation. So you did not supply the information that was called for by the institute, and therefore you will be held GPM under part 2 of clause 2 of part 3 of schedule 1. And lastly, ICI required all firms having networking relationship need to furnish the information online with stipulated time. That is, you need to tell about your network firms, who all are your associate firms, who all are your network firms. You did not forwarded the same to the institute. You did not comply with clause 2 of part 3 of schedule 1. Firm failed to respond. So let's come to now part 4, which deals with what? Other misconduct. Other misconduct again applies to any moti, that is whether in practice or not, that is CA in general, will be deemed to be guilty of other misconduct. Just remember this, it's not professional misconduct, it's GOM, not GPM. If MCQ they ask you, you'll be held GPM, and another option they give you GOM, then you will take what? Guilty of other misconduct. Other. So first point was with respect to if you are being held guilty by civil or criminal court, simple, for an offense, and you is punishable for an offense not exceeding 6 months. First clause is very simple. You should be first of all held guilty for any offense which is punishable, and you should be held guilty of imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months. And if exceeding 6 months, you can just go to part 3 of schedule 2. Part 3 of schedule 2. Just quickly go there. You'll see the same point, but you are being held guilty for more than 6 months. Imprisonment for more than 6 months. The same point, same point. For less than 6 months, you will fall in schedule 1, part 4, clause 1. If for more than 6 months, you will be held guilty under schedule 2, part 3. Schedule 2, part 3. That is less than equal to 6 months. And for more than 6 months, you will be held guilty of other misconduct under part 3 of schedule 2. Now clause 2 deals with what? This is a residual clause. You can see it as, that's why I told you what, you need to recollect all the clause number. You need to have the ability to retain all the clause numbers, thereby which you can just, if at all a question comes, you will try to figure out in which clause it can fit into. And if at all it is not fitting into any clause, then you can just fill it where? Clause 2 of part 4 of schedule 1, that is residual clause, you can say, or income from other source. That is, in the opinion of the council, you are bringing disrepute to the profession of the institute. In the opinion of the council, you are bringing disrepute to the profession of the institute. That is any sort of personal behavior, you are not following the ethical standards that the institute requires you to do so, or any sort of omission on the part of you. then you will be held guilty of other misconduct under clause 2 of part 4 of schedule 1. 142. Now there are many illustrative examples, and out of these examples only the institute has been asking the questions. So first one, being a chartered accountant, retain the books of account. Do you know, can you retain the books of account of your client if he is not paying the fees? Yes.
No,
Yes,
sir.
we can retain if he does not pay the fees.
So that was allowed by Companies Act, Section 143, powers of auditor. But Ethical Standard Board in its meeting in April 2017 has told auditor not to engage in all sort of this chindi chori kind of activities, to retain the books or to any sort of retention of the books because of this non-payment of fees. So Ethical Standard Board clearly tells you what, that you cannot retain the books of accounts of the client. If you do so, then you will be held GPM under part 4 schedule 1 clause 2. Clear? Then where a chartered accountant makes a material misrepresentation, any sort of material misrepresentation you are doing to your clients, you will be held GPM here only. When where a chartered accountant uses the service of his article or audit assistant for the purpose of other than professional practice, that means you are being told by your principal to bring vegetables, you are being told by your principal to sweep, so then your principal will be held GPM under clause 2. Conviction by a competent court for any offense under section 8.5. This will see while we go through all the sections, important sections of Chartered Accountants Act 1949. Section 8.5 talks about where you have been held guilty of imprisonment, and therefore if you have been held guilty, then you will be held also guilty under clause 2 of part 4 of schedule 1. Yes, everyone's back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we were studying what clause 2 of part 4 of schedule 1, where we saw 3-4 example. Let's go through some other examples as well. Suppose now you are a treasurer of your Sikasa committee or your regional council, wherever you are, and you are a treasurer. So you have to manage all the funds. Yeah,
आ जाओ
Tanvir.
ना। कल छुट्टी करूँगा, ये कल जाना था मेरे को।
So suppose you are a treasurer and suppose Tanvir is treasurer of the regional council, and I told Tanvir that out of this treasury income, treasury money, that you must be having so much of the funds coming from the institute. Institute is very rich. You must be aware about this, right? ICI. So there are a lot of funds inflowing to the institute. So I told her to give 1 month, only for 1 month, 1 lakh to me. I need to buy jewelry for my mother. So I I told her that I need to buy jewelry for my mother or for, let's suppose, for anyone. And then Tanvi told that okay, I'll give, but the condition is that she should know who is actually lending to you. So Tanvir gave 1 lakh to me. So do you think he'll be held GPM? Because he is being office bearer of a regional council and is misappropriating money. Misappropriation of money by office bearer of a regional council of the institute and utilization thereof for his personal use. Similarly, is not replying within a reasonable time and without a good cause to the letter of public authorities. So if you are not replying within a reasonable time to ICI, you will be held GPM under clause 2 of part 3 of schedule 1. If you are not replying within a reasonable time to public authorities, then you will be held GPM under other misconduct. Not GPM, but you will be held other guilty of other misconduct under clause 2 of part 4. Then certain assessment records of income tax department belonging to my client was found in Almira of me. Income tax records books of accounts was found in my Almira instead of clients. So there also he'll be held GPM. Why books of account were being kept in personal space, personal place, right? Then whereas he adopted coercive methods of bank for giving a loan sanction. So what happened is I went to a bank and I told her to grant loan to my client. Branch manager strictly denied, not having a proper civil or anything sort of profile for having a loan. So I simply told branch manager, if you sanction the loan, I will file all your employees income tax return. So here I am applying what coercive methods on a bank for having the loan sanctioned. So again, I'll be held what GOM under clause 2 of part 4 of schedule 1. Availing limits in the name of various floated companies fraudulently. So you must be aware about various flotation frauds, like what do we say, GST frauds, income tax frauds, and many of the company, illegal company or sort of shell company which has been formed by the CAs. So again here you will come under clause 2. CA name removed from register of members, still deed ke type you are still continuing to do the audit, still not complying with the institute's mentions, institute's instructions, still you are continuing with the audit even if your name is being removed from the ROM, that is you are no more chartered accountant, still you are representing yourself as a chartered accountant. Falsely verified form 32 filed with ROC, fraudulently obtaining DSC, even after full payment of fees refused to complete the work of tax audit. Gunda CA, receiving the fees on full payment of fees, now I am denying the work to be completed. जो कर ले, जो करना है, जो उखाड़ना है उखाड़ ले. I will not do the audit. Contrasting to Schedule 7 of Schedule 2 of Part 1, this we will study in Schedule 2 Part 1 Clause 7, where you are not able to complete the audit in due time. You are willing to do the audit, but you are not able to do the audit or finish off your work in due time. There you will be held GPM under Schedule 2 Part 1 Clause 7 under grossly negligency, or not able to do perform your work with due diligence, then you will be held guilty there. But here you are guilty of not being willing to do the work itself. Even after receiving the fees, you are not willing to do the work, and therefore you will be held you will be held of guilty of other misconduct. Two question came in exam. Just see that: appointed as concurrent auditor and influenced to get loan and thereafter failed to repay. I was appointed as a concurrent auditor, and therefore I influenced the bank to get myself a loan, and then I told them no, that I won't be able to repay. So this in overall implies what? This involves my personal behavior, my personal reputation, which is also disreputing the profession of a chartered accountants in general. So I'll be held guilty. Anywhere you feel that it is not fitting into any sort of clause, then go directly to residual clause, clause 2 of part 4 of schedule 1. Engages article assistant in election campaign. So I told Mehak my article what? Sorry, Nupur was my article. I told Nupur that okay, now you have cleared IAS, but still you are my article, right? So go with election commissioner, go with the all the ministers. Since the election campaign is going on, go with all the minister, go and roam with everywhere in all the places. You will be approaching to many of the ministers, thereby everyone will be aware about you. So thereby will help you in your career only. So this is also not a sort of behavior which is expected out of CA, right? Article has to do perform the work. This is in essence actually helping CA to bring certain reputation in front of ministers, right? Thereby will be building his reputation in front of ministers, since he'll sending her articles in election campaigns or any sort of places. Then go through this question also. This is the question where what happened is check got bounced because of insufficiency of fund. So suppose you are Nupur again. I gave her articleship stipend, and when she filed with the bank, the check got bounced. I did not have sufficient funds. So there also I'll be held GPM. Now one more example could be, suppose Kapil used to have minimum average balance of 5,000 in his bank account, and he generally does not deposit much in the bank account. Suddenly one time what he saw was there was a deposit of 2,50,000, and he didn't knew it come from where, but he knew that it was deposited by some other sources or some unknown sources, and he's being benefited. Now he quickly did what? He quickly went to ATM and withdrew all the money. And now the bank is approaching, but he is not replying to the bank officials. So will he be held GPM or will he be held GOM? Yes, right. Similarly, another example which I could think of is going in train and not having a ticket. So all the behavior sort of professional or personal behavior where you are not behaving as is required by the institute to have their reputation being maintained, then there you will be held GPM or sorry GOM under clause 2 of part 4 of schedule 1. Clear? We are done with schedule 1. Any sort of doubt till schedule 1? Very, very important. Definitely a question or two will be asked from all the clauses which we have learned till now.
Sir, I have one doubt.
Yeah,
Uh, on clause 2, part 2 of schedule 1. There
clause
was one
2 part
question.
2. Yeah,
Emolument, there was a question. So in that,
practicing chartered accountant, also he was an employee. That one, right?
uh,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Sir, in that case, the share he's taking is not affecting the any emolument or anything. It's kind of sort of his personal job.
No,
Like there was two.
he recommended a particular lawyer to this employer, right? As a suppose I am working in this organization and I referred you to my employer and you got selected. The lawyer out of now the professional fee or any sort of fee that you are receiving, or suppose you are being selected as an employee. So now I am asking you to give certain money to me, or you are giving certain money and I am accepting it. So what's your question?
No, actually, from lawyer we can take any fees, but as this is due to the emolument, that's why it is
Yeah.
held guilty.
Yes, because forms part of the fees or emoluments shared out of the fees or emoluments from the company that you are receiving, and you are giving me out of that, because this specifically mentioned that from a lawyer, chartered accountant, or a broker that is being engaged by such company, firm or person, or agent or customer of such company, firm or person, by way of commission or gratification.
Okay, sir.
Yes, any other doubt? Are we comfortable? Can I ask any question? So let's just quickly, I'll ask nothing but the schedule, or sorry, the clause numbers only, right? So what was Sagar? What was part 3 clause 2? Schedule 1 part 3 clause 2.
Uh, Sir, free. It means accepting. Accepts.
Schedule 1 part 3 clause 2. Part 3.
So wait a minute. Let me recall.
Part 3 was with respect to what?
Professional misconduct.
Yeah, professional misconduct in the case of CA in practice, or employee CA both.
Sir, both. It
Both.
doesn't matter whether he is in practice or not.
So what was clause 1? Do you remember? There were 3 clauses in part 3. Part 3, you can remember, in part 3 there are 3 clauses. And I told you how to
Sir,
learn those 3
first
clauses.
was FCA, second one was fail, and the third one was false, false, false.
So fail to do what? Clause 2 of part 3. Fail to supply.
Fail to supply information to the certain institutes like ICI and certain ones I can't
No,
remember
no,
right now.
not these certain institute. To the institute only. If you are failing to supply the information which is asked for or called for by the institute or by its council, by its regional council, institute ke regional councils, you are aware about this, that there are 5 regional councils of the institute: eastern, western, southern, northern and central. These are regional councils. And then
Yes, sir.
quality review board is again a board which is being established by the central government for the purpose of reviewing the audits which are being done by the auditors, that will teach, that will learn in quality review chapter. Similarly, by the board of discipline, disciplinary committee, director discipline, all these are the members of the institutes only.
Okay, sir.
So clause 2 of part 3 of schedule 1
Part 3.
was with respect to failure. And what was clause 3?
Sir, false. Giving false information whenever
To
asked.
whenever asked? No, not
Um,
whenever asked.
Responding to the tender.
When we are
oh,
responding to the
sorry.
tender, or
Responding to the
anyway,
tender.
anytime we are writing, when we are advertising through write up as given under clause 6 and 7 of this, clause 6 and 7 of part 1 of this schedule. Remember
Yes, sir.
what is part 1 of clause, sorry, what is clause 1 of part 4 of schedule 1, Nikita? Clause 4 of part 1. Clause 4 of part 1. Sorry, clause 1 of part 4.
So, so partnership with it was
Schedule 1
related.
part 4, part 4, fourth part, last part, clause 1. Just now
So,
Held guilty.
punishment.
yes. So if you are being held guilty by a civil or criminal court for an offense, and you are being imprisoned for less than or equal to 6 months, imprisonment for a period not exceeding 6 months. And if exceeding 6 months, where will it go? I told you, schedule
Schedule 2, Part 3.
schedule 2 part 3. Clear? So let's start with what? Schedule 2 now. Come to part 1. Schedule 2 part 1. Now part 1 was with respect to which CAs? Chartered accountant in practice. Remember I told you this is with respect to all the chartered accountants in practice. So a CAP will be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he. So now whatever clauses we'll be learning, these are certain restrictions or prohibitions which institute has put in order to avoid certain grievant misconducts. So these misconducts will be much more grievant as compared to schedule 1. And therefore the penalty also, what we saw, do you remember the penalty for falling into schedule 2 versus falling into schedule 1 could range from, for schedule 1 it was up to 1 lakh, for schedule 2 or schedule both schedules it was 5 lakhs. Similarly, they could reprimand the member or they could remove the name of the register of member in the case of schedule 1 for up to 3 months. But in case of schedule 2, they could remove it forever or they could remove it as they like, up till the period as they like. Clear? So first clause is with respect to if you are disclosing any information, disclosing any information which you have acquired in the course of your professional engagement to any person other than your client. The client who has engaged you, you can disclose his information to him only. If you disclose his confidential information to any person other than the client so engaging him, or without the consent of his client or otherwise, then as required by any law for the timing info, then you will be held GPM. So exception 1 will be if you are disclosing it to the client itself. Exception 2 will be you are disclosing anyone else with the permission of the client. But here, with the permission of the client, you are disclosing it under any law or regulation. Under any law or regulation, if it is required. For example, section 143 subsection 12. You are required to disclose the amount of fraud if it is exceeding 1 crore to secretary MCA in a sealed envelope, right? This is a requirement by law. So you will tell the client that yes, I have to disclose this information to the secretary MCA, and you will disclose the same. Clear? So disclose the information acquired in the course of your professional engagement to any person other than his client. That means you can disclose to the client. Disclose to the client and without the consent of his client or otherwise than as required by any law for the time being in force. Let's just quickly come to the below points and then we'll solve the questions. So if disclosure is required in other cases, it would be necessary to ensure that consent of the client is given by a person who is competent to accord such consent. That means whenever the consent of the client is required so that we can disclose the confidential information to any other person with the consent of the client. So from whom will you take the consent? So in the case of partnership firm, you will take the consent of partner. If the client is a partnership firm, if the client is a company, then with from whom you will take the consent? In the case of a company, you will take the consent from BOD, or if the BOD has delegated such power to managing director, then you will take the consent from managing director. Similarly, in the case of partner, you can take the consent from any of the partner. In the case of the client being a sole proprietor, then you will take the consent from the proprietor or any power of attorney holder. Clear? So this is not yet been asked by the institute. Again, it's easy, it's simple, but you should be aware about this as well. They can anytime frame. In the case of a company, they could give other options. You need to ask to BOD, you need to ask to the MD. If this being delegated by BOD, you can ask from MD as well. Option C could be by shareholders, by resolution by shareholders, right? They could frame any sort of question as an MCQ. So disclosure is required, then you need to take consent accordingly from the person who can give you the consent. Then auditor at his discretion in the case considered appropriate by him make portions of or extracts from his working papers available to the client. So difference between working papers and confidential information, there is a difference. Working papers are our property, right? Working papers, you must be aware about this. Auditor's working paper is whose property? Is the property of the auditor. And auditor at his discretion can allow or allow the extracts of the working papers to be provided to the clients only. To the clients only. Working papers cannot be provided to any other person. Working paper, if at my discretion, me as an auditor, I think that yes, I can allow or extracts of the working papers to be provided to the clients, then yes, I can do so. But this information which we are talking about in clause 1, this is the confidential information, not just the working papers. So this confidential information can be shared either with the client or with the regulatory authority because of the requirement of any law. So are you getting the difference? Working paper can be provided to the client only at my discretion. At my discretion. And here there is a difference between sharing of working paper and sharing of information. So far the information is concerned, you can provide the information to the client or to a regulatory body after obtaining the consent of the client. So quickly go through the question, tell me the answer. Yes, Nupur. First answer. Came across a tax fraud. You came across a tax fraud of previous year for which you were not representing the client, but you came across a tax fraud. That means you did not sign the report, you did not sign the financial statement, but you now are aware about a tax fraud which happened in the last year. Now, will you go to income tax department and disclose about the same?
No.
No, right? You
Yeah.
cannot do so. But in case suppose you were representing the client last year, that means you only did the financial statement signing, you only issued the
Mm,
audit report. Now will you go and tell the income tax department?
maybe yes, sir.
So here it was a question which was asked very long back, like 10 12 years before. No more, they are no more present in the study material, But here now, if you were representing the clients, there used to be a guideline. If you're not representing the clients, then you need not go to the tax department only. You will not say anything. But if you were representing the client, you only issued the audit report, then you will go to the department and simply tell that these books of accounts are no more reliable. That's it. You will not tell the fraud, where is it in the profit and loss account or in the balance sheet, in which item it is there. You will not tell anything sort of specifics about the fraud. You will just simply tell the department that the books are no more reliable. The books of accounts are not reliable. That's it. So you can write this also. If you were representing in last year, then report to income tax about non-reliability books of accounts only and nothing more. Also abstain from current year. Also abstain from current year from engaging with this client. Are we clear? Yes, Suneshwaran.
Yes, sir.
Said that forward amount can be carried forward, right? So in that case, we have to report.
That fraud amount can be carried forward
Uh,
in the current year. Yes,
yes.
if it is so, if it is the case, then even if you are not representing the clients, you should refrain from accepting the engagement. Now that you are aware about the tax fraud in the last year, you should simply be refraining to disclose the same to the department, as well as refrain from accepting the client as well. No member shall advise to disclose. No, that is, member shall advise to disclose. He may act for current matter, but is in no obligation to continue. If you want, you can act for the current year and you can disclose the same for the current year, not about the previous year. You can disclose the same for the current year, but it's not your obligation to continue with the engagement of the current year. ठीक है?
Yes, sir.
Now banks ask chartered accountant for opinion and detailed financial information of client for providing loan. Again, confidentiality requirement. Also, you can refer to SA 200. Do you remember there was used to be a confidentiality point, professional skepticism, confidentiality. So SA 200 talks about all the basics that an auditor needs to be aware about. So confidentiality requirement, you can also talk about SA 200. Again, schedule 2 part 1 clause 1. So all this, and as well as this 230 working papers, since this is the opinion of chartered accountant, all these working papers can be provided only to the client. If banks are asking for you to provide detailed information, you are under no obligation to provide the same to the bankers, right? Because this is the working papers, the owners of which are the auditors, and they may at the discretion allow or extracts of the working papers to the client and not to any other person. So as a 200 reference also you'll give, as a 230 reference also you have to give, along with clause 1 of part 1 of schedule 1. I'm not writing here clause 1 part 1 schedule 1 because it is already, of course, obvious, right? We are going through all the questions under clause 1. So I just write the remarks which you might not be aware about, but is given by the ICA in the suggested answer. So remarks include those additional points that you should be aware about, that you have to write it in your answer as well. Then CA in the course of audit finds fraud and violation of law. He informed out of public interest to ROC without permission of the client. What do you think, Dhanlakshmi? Yes, Dhanlakshmi, CA in the course of audit, you find a fraud and violation of law. Therefore, out of public interest, you inform to ROC without the permission of the client.
He's allowed to do so.
Why? Under what circumstance?
Because in like section 143, there is one clause where there is a fraud amount involving greater than 1 crore, then he should directly report to CNAG.
Not to CNDG, but to Secretary MCA.
Okay, sorry.
Secretary MCA. And here out of here
Huh.
you can say that yes, ROC reporting can be required if the amount is exceeding the fraud amount exceeds 1 crore.
Hmm.
So section 143.12, if fraud by employee or officer, then need to report. If this is not the case, that means the fraud is not by the employee or not by the officer, or if the fraud is less than 1 CR, then the reporting has to be done only to the BOD only. That means overall 143.12 requirement is satisfying, then yes, you will not be held GPM, else
Hmm.
you will be held GPM under clause 1 of part 1 of
GPM.
schedule 1.
Yes.
ठीक है. CA shared vital information of the client in a presentation under the impression it would also help the industry compete with the international market. So what I did was, Pawan, tell me, if suppose you are my client and I disclose your information in the industry, thinking that by disclosing such information, it will help you to boost your firm, because everyone would now be aware about your firm, that so much big services that you are providing, and will be approaching you since I disclose those all this information about you. So will I be held GPM? It is because of the benefit of you I did so.
Guilty of.
Guilty, right?
Yes.
Doesn't matter it is I am doing it with the beneficial purpose of the client or not.
Yes.
I cannot disclose confidential information. So confidentiality is of utmost priority to be taken care of in clause 1 part 1 of schedule 1. Are you aware about the fact of that SR Bartley boy tax fraud, where the income tax department took the raid, and also whenever they raid the client, they also go to
Audit.
CA office as well. So they could not unlock the SR Bartley boy system. Generally, they'll ask for password. If you are not providing the password, then they'll simply unlock through their cyber team. Their cyber security team, they will unlock, but they were not able to unlock the security system of the SR Bartley boy. This was with respect to a CA firm or a fraud by a client, which is in the domain of chartered accountancy. Do you know this Apple terrorist confidentiality breach?
Yes, sir.
Apple denied to disclose any sort of information which was found in iPad or iPhone of the terrorist organization. So Apple denied even to disclose that as well. That means to unlock that iPad or iPhone. It was out of their policy, so they didn't follow that also in the for the sake of humanity, or even for the sake of like for anti-terrorism, that also they didn't allow the same. So confidentiality, that much level they can go. So that is how you should also think of it. Clause 1 part 1 schedule 1. Now
Sir, in
let's,
the permission with the client, we can do that. That the last
yeah,
example
the
question.
client
Yeah.
will
Okay.
not allow you to, na?
Okay. Okay.
Either with the permission of the client or if it is required by law or regulation. So coming on to clause 2 now. A CA in practice shall be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he certifies or submits in his name or in the name of my firm. That means I am certifying the financials, I am certifying the report on examination of financial statement. Overall, you can say financial statement report or financial statement certificate. I am certifying the same without examining, the same. That means I am certifying a report on examination of financial statement unless I will not be held GPM if it is being properly examined by me. If it is properly examined by me, unless such examination of such statements and the related record has been made by him or by my partner or by my employee or by another chartered accountant in practice. That means someone has to do the examination. If I certify or submits in my name or in the name of my firm a report on examination of financial statement, and this has not been examined by me or by my partner or by my employee or by any other chartered accountant in practice, then I will be held GPM. Clear? So just go through this question. Go through this question and tell me whether clause 2 will apply here or not. A was a CA, chartered accountant was the auditor of A Limited. Investment appeared in the balance sheet of the company was 10 lakh and was of the same amount as in the last year. Later on, it was found that the company's investments were only 25,000. They were showing it as 10 lakh, but it were merely 25,000. But the value of inflation was inflated for the purpose of obtaining higher amount of bank loan. Yes. Do you think clause 2 will come? Did I do my work with proper examination of the facts? No, investment is so easy to quantify, right? If it's a 25,000 investment, you could have easily asked certificate of investment, physical certificates, or if it's in DMAT format, then you could have easily checked DMATs, or any sort of verification you could have easily done for verifying of investments. And there's such a huge gap, 10 lakh versus 25,000. Easily you could have identified all those deviations. So in this case, clause 2 will apply, that you submitted the financials, that you certified the balance sheet, certified the report on examination of financial statement, unless such examination is being done by a chartered accountant, by his partner, or by his employee, or by another chartered accountant in practice. So no one took care of this, and therefore clause 2 will get triggered. Whenever clause 2 triggers, do remember clause 7 and clause 8 also might get triggers. Mostly it will trigger. In one case, clause 8 will not get triggered. What is clause 7 and clause 8? We'll just simply see now. Clause 7 is with respect to when you are not performing your duty with due diligence. That means you are grossly negligent in the performing of your duties. So here above, do you think that we were grossly negligent in performing our duties? Yes. We did not examine the investments properly with due diligence. So clause 7 will come also. Clause 2 will come, clause 7 will also come. And what does clause 8 say? See, clause 8 see that you fail to obtain the information. You fail to obtain sufficient information which is necessary for expressing an opinion. So, do you think we failed to obtain the necessary information which was necessary in order to express our opinion on the investments appearing in the balance sheet? Yes or no? Right? We failed to obtain necessary information which was necessary in order for us to express our opinion on the investments on the balance sheet, appearing on the balance sheet. And when we do so, that is when we fail, that is when there is an exception. That means where we fail to do so, where we fail to obtain the information, it is as good as you have not given an opinion. That means if you have not obtained the information, it is as good as negating the expression of an opinion. So failure to obtain the sufficient information which is necessary for expression of an opinion, the exception of which the exception of which are sufficiently material to negate the expression of the opinion. That means if you are not obtaining those information, it is as good as you are not giving opinion at all. You are just simply without verification, without examination, issuing the audit report but not giving your audit opinion. It is as good as that. The exception of which is sufficiently material to negate the expression of your opinion. That is, the opinion that you gave, it is being nullified, it has been negated because of this exception. Exception being failure to obtain necessary information. So clause 2, 7, clause 2, clause 7, and clause 8 all are interlinked.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in this case, clause 8, why any auditor will issue audit report if it's not obtaining sufficient information?
So you have to issue audit report if suppose there is a timeline which has to be followed in the due date is very near, so you're not able to obtain sufficient information in a hurry, you did not obtain all the necessary evidences, you did not obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences till you gave your audit report, audit opinion.
He can give qualified remarks.
He can give qualified, but you did not, na, under the, that is what we are saying, that you are
So
not
it is on
performing
a
your
slip of
duties
CA.
accordingly. You are not able, it's not like you are not able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidences. You fail to obtain audit evidences, and which was necessary for expression of the opinion, still you gave the opinion.
Sir, it is completely the mistake of CA now.
Yeah, that is why we are guilty, na? That is why we are guilty under clause 8 of part 1 of schedule 2. That is what we are saying. This is a grievant mistake done by the auditor. Without obtaining all the information, you are just giving your opinion, which is as good as not giving an opinion, negating the expression of an opinion. Similarly, grossly negligent, without any due diligence, you are performing your duty, not checking the investment, or sort of you could have easily checked. Suppose balance certificate, bank balance, you could have easily obtained the banker's certification, banker's confirmation. So first step should be always what? Obtaining external confirmation as a proper audit evidence. So you should have obtained banker's confirmation. But without any such certification, without any such confirmation, you issued your opinion. That is why in the case of Satyam, if you are aware about Satyam fraud case, what happened was they inflated the bank balance, and auditor could have easily obtained the confirmation from bank, but they didn't. So this is one of the audit procedure which is very much feasible, very much doable by the auditor, and you cannot do so that it is not being provided by the client, or it is a mistake of a client that we were not able to do so. So all this is a mistake of you as an auditor. You are being grossly negligent. You did not perform your duty with due diligence. You failed to obtain information which you could have easily got, obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidences. And also the clause 2, that means you failed to examine the books of account, or you failed to examine those necessary information. So the difference between clause 2 and clause 8, can you identify? There is a minute, a thin line of difference. Just a thin line of difference.
CA is certifying that he without checking,
Huh?
but here he is checking, but he is not getting sufficient information in clause 8.
Here also he is not actually examining properly. Could relate to clause 2 only. He is not he has not obtained sufficient information and still he issued the opinion. Thereby you could say that he has not examined properly, even because he issued opinion without obtaining sufficient information. The difference here is with respect to, in clause 2 there is written report on examination of financial statement. Here the reporting or certification could be anything with respect to anything other than financial statements as well. So example, suppose you need to have a stock certification. Stock certification. So stock is a financial statement figure. Stock certification, you need to have, you need to examine the entire stock, what is the procedure being followed, how is the method of valuation of the stock being followed, FIFO, weighted average, whatever, everything, and then you will certify the same. Now this stock is a financial statement figure which could be tell us by that this is a report on examination of financial statement. So here clause 2, 7 and 8, all three will prevail. But for say example, we need to certify circulation of magazines. Are you aware that the magazines that is being circulated by agencies, they tell that we circulated 500 agencies across the city, or whatever figure they give, then they also need, this also needs to be audited by a chartered accountant, because this is a requirement by the agency of which the agency is circulating the magazines. So this is a requirement by the magazine organization only. So whatever figure that you tell to the public, the circulation of 500 or 5000 magazines that you circulated has to be audited by a chartered accountant. So now this number of circulation is not a financial statement related item, and therefore here clause 2 will not get triggered, but you can refer to clause 8 and clause 7. Clause 8 and clause 7. Are we clear, or any doubt?
So suppose one thing, like while checking in the audit procedure, auditor know that there is a fraud. While checking, he has checked already, and
Yeah.
he knows that there is some amount of fraud. Still, he is giving relax or
Then that will come in clause 5 and clause 6. Clause 5 and clause 6 of schedule 1 part 1, which deals
okay.
with fail to disclose material fact known to him. If you are aware about the fact, you examined it, You got the evidences, you got the information, and you are aware about the fact known to him. Fail to report a material misstatement known to him, then it will come in clause 5 and clause 6.
Means the fraud it is known to him, you will be
And he
5
did not
6.
report the same. We did
Ah,
not report the material misstatement which was known to you, but you
okay.
did not report. Then it will come in clause 5 and clause 6. But you are not aware about the same since you did not examine it properly. You did not obtain all the information. You perform your duty with grossly negligence procedures or with not any due diligence. Then it will come in 278. And in
Okay.
one case, I told you clause 2 reference you, if you don't want to give, then it is okay. In the case of magazine circulation, question generally come from magazine circulation from clause 8. There you will have to refer to clause 8 and clause 7.
So, so we may say like clause 8 covers the wider information than clause 2.
Yeah, clause 2 is specific about the report on examination of financial statements, but clause 8 will cover everything. Apart from financial
Okay.
statement, if you are reporting on anything, sort of example that we took is what? Circulation of magazines. Then clause 8 will come since it's not related to sort of financial statement. This is my interpretation based on the suggested answer given by the institute. They did not refer to clause 2. They referred to clause 7 and clause 8. So in order for you also
If
to refer to the same clause, I told you the logic. Yeah. Yes, Sunny?
if question says about the financial statement only, then we refer to the clause 2. Otherwise, we refer to clause 8.
You will refer to clause 2 and clause 8 also. Clause 2, 7, 8.
Both.
All, yeah. As well as
Okay.
7. Clause 7
Fine,
also.
sir.
Like example, we saw
Yeah.
stock certification, net worth certification. Without examination, you did so. Then you'll refer to clause 2, you'll refer to clause 7, and also refer to clause 8.
Sure, sir. Fine.
See the answer here. What they are given in the case of balance sheet of the company of 10 lakhs and 20,000, but the value of investment was inflated for the purpose of obtaining higher amount of bank loan. So they have referred clause 2, clause 7, clause 8. Just go through the answer once. Yes. Any doubt? So till now, any doubt? Clause 2, clause 1. Clause 1 deals with confidentiality. Clause 2 deals with without examination of the facts, you are certifying the report or financial statements. And again, this report on financial statements are what financial statement or what reports? Reports issued to outside authorities. Same that we saw in the clause. Which clause? Clause 12 of part 1 of schedule 1. Remember signing the financial statement report, balance sheet, profit and loss. All these reports was clarification was there. Remember just below the clause. It was there what? That report means report issued to outside authorities. Similarly, the case will be here also. All sort of reports which are issued to outside authorities. All reports are covered. Then quickly come to clause 3. Clause 3. It deals with you are permitting your name to be used or you are permitting your firm name to be used in connection with the estimate of earnings. Estimate of earning, that is earnings estimate. Next year, how much will be the earnings? For next 5 years, how much will be the earnings? What will be the financial statement for next 5 years? You must have done this, right? Projections of next 5 years financials. Now, if you are allowing or if you are permitting your name or your firm name to be associated with this, that means you are signing the same. Do you think, are you a god or what? Can you predict future? No, right? So you cannot sign and say that yes, this is true and correct or true and fair view, according to me. For next 5 years, this is just an earnings estimate. Therefore, you need to tell that you do not vouch for the verification of this forecast. You have to specifically tell that even if you are signing the same, but you have to specifically mention that you do not vouch for the verification of the for this forecast. And therefore, if you are associating your name or firm name with the estimate of earning which is contingent upon future future transactions in a manner that will lead to the belief that you are vouching for the accuracy of the forecast, then you will be held GPM. It should not be so that it is leading to a belief that you are vouching that yes, next 5 years it's going to be the same. You cannot do so, right? We are not God. Therefore, in this case, you have to give what reference of SAE 3400, examination of prospective financial information. These are not actual financial information, prospective FIs. Prospective financial information, you are examining that, then you have to do this in accordance with SAE 3400. What are SAEs? Standards on assurance engagement. So there are assurance services provided by the auditor, could be absolute assurance, could be reasonable assurance. Then reasonable assurance could also deal with limited assurance or other than limited assurance. So standard on assurance services other than auditing is dealt by two SAEs, and one of the SAEs is SAE 3400, leading to dealing with what? Examination of prospective financial information. And here you have to do four things. You have to tell four things in your report. That means the source of information, from which source you got the information. From 2 years audited financial statement, you will tell that next 5 years we have assumed the figures of last two financial years audited financial statements. What is the source of financial information? What is the basis of the forecast? So you can tell that we are just following the trend. We have taken the average of last 2 years and we are following the same average, or we are increasing it by 10%. Whatever is your basis of forecast, you will tell the same. Similarly, you will tell the assumptions made in arriving at the forecast. So in case you are not available with certain figures or certain information, then you assumed certain information, you will all tell all these assumptions as well. And lastly, you will not vouch for the accuracy of the forecast. You do not vouch for the accuracy of the forecast. If you fulfill all these 4 points, then only you can participate in the preparation of the profit or financial forecast. Are we clear? A CA can participate in the preparation of profit or financial forecast and can review them, provided he indicates clearly in your report. You have to clearly indicate what you did, source of information, basis of forecast, major assumptions that you made arriving at the forecast, and you do not vouch for the accuracy of the forecast. So Sashi, I'll just ask you one question. How
Yes,
many
sir.
how many boyfriends do you have?
Sir, I'm married.
Okay, you have married, sorry. So you do not have the boyfriend, but then
It's
we
love
can.
marriage, sir. I
Okay,
had.
boyfriend is
Now
unmarried.
he's my husband.
Okay, then we cannot get the source of the boyfriend of Sashi, but we can assume, right? We can assume the same about BF. We cannot have the source of BF, but we can assume the same. So BF means basis of forecast, source means source of information, assume means all the assumptions that you made, but in any way you cannot vouch for the accuracy of such assumptions, right? Whatever assumption that we make. So basis of forecast, source, assumption, and then vouching for the accuracy of the forecast. You cannot vouch for the accuracy of the forecast. BF is basis of forecast, source of information, and assumption. Also, you have to tell. So all these 4 points you need to remember. You need to retain. See this question. He prepared and certifies. You cannot certify a projected financial statement. Getting this? I told you why. Because we are not. Are we clear? Now come to clause 4. Clause 4 of part 1 of schedule 1. Sorry, schedule 2. Schedule 2 part 1 clause 4 is what? expression of his opinion on financial statement. That means you are expressing an opinion on the financial statement of any business or enterprise, but the business or enterprise is related to you. Related to you. So if you are expressing an opinion on the financial statement of such business or enterprise in which you are interested or in which you are related to that business, in which you or your firm, entirely in your firm, your partner of the firm has a substantial interest. What do you mean by substantial interest? 20%, right? So you can see here substantial interest equals to what? 20% or more voting power in the case of a company, and in the case of a partnership firm it would mean what? 20% or more profit sharing. So just read this once again. Important point, important clause, clause 4. You are expressing an opinion on the financial statement of a business or enterprise in which you, your firm, or your partner of the firm is substantially interested. Is substantially interested. Come just below this, in this line. Also, a member may, for the same reasons as not to compromise his independence, desist from undertaking the audit of financial statement. That means he should not undertake the audit where the partner or relative of member has substantial interest. So here relative is also mentioned. So you can include here relative also, even though it is not mentioned in the clause, but relative of your relative is also covered. If your relative is also having a substantial interest, then also you cannot accept the audit of that client. Any doubt? So what are the relationships that we'll see? Me, my firm, my partner, or my relative having substantial interest in the entity of the business and business of the entity or enterprise, then I cannot accept the audit. I cannot express the opinion on the financial statement of such business or enterprise. Clause 4, part 1, schedule 2. Again, the word financial statement would mean both reports and certificates. I told you earlier as well. This means both reports and certificate issued outside authorities. Issued to outside authorities. Council has decided not to permit a CA in the employment to certify the financial statement of the concern in which he is employed. Obviously, if you are an employee of a company, can you do the audit of that company? No. If you are an employee of any entity, you cannot do the audit of that entity, right? You cannot certify a report on the financial statement of that concern or a concern under the same management also. This is important. This can be framed as a question. Even if you are not an if you are even if you are doing an audit of a concern which is related to the concern in which you are an employee. That means I am an employee in A Limited, and A Limited has a entity B Limited in which more or less the management is same. More or less the management is same. Then even B Limited audit also I cannot do, or of a concern under the same management as the concern in which he is employed. Are we clear with this point? This is important. I think they can try to frame a question out of this. Till now they haven't. This you will be able to anyway guess that if I am an employee, I won't be able to undertake an audit of my employer. Similarly, I cannot
So
undertake an, yeah.
can you please repeat it again?
See, suppose मैं auditor हूँ, सपोज आई एम एन एम्प्लॉय नॉट ऑडिटर, मैं एम्प्लॉय हूँ ए लिमिटेड में, ठीक है, एंड ए लिमिटेड में बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स कंपोजिशन इज सपोज ए बी सी and management is being done by A and chairperson is suppose B. MD is A and chairperson is suppose B. CP is B. Suppose same entity B Limited is sort of a wholly owned subsidiary, you can say, or any sort of that. And B Limited again board of director comprises of A. Just there is a change that now the chairperson is A and managing director is B. Just a slight change, but more or less, don't you think this is being managed by same management,
Yes, sir.
right? So
Same.
employee cannot do the audit of A Limited. That is for sure. You cannot do the audit of your employer of any concern in which you are employee. In B Limited also you cannot do the audit. B Limited also you cannot be appointed as an auditor because B Limited management is same of the management in which you are an employee. Clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Now, Sony, quickly tell me, you accepted a part-time lecturership in the college and you also accepted the auditorship of a college, of the same college, in which you accepted the part-time lecturership in the college. So which clause you will be held guilty?
So it
Here
is
it says
covered
that
in
CA
clause
should not
11.
by himself or in your firm name should not accept the auditorship of a college if he is working as a part-time lecturership in that college.
Yes, sir. It is covered in uh, clause 4.
Yes. Clause
He
4
is
you will be held
guilty.
guilty. Clause 4 of part 1 of schedule 2. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but I am asking one more clause in which you will be held guilty.
Clause 11.
Clause 11 of
Of part 1, schedule
schedule
1.
1. Clause 11 of part 1 of schedule 1, because you are
Because
accepting part-time lectureship in any institute other
yes,
than coaching organization of the ICAI. Correct?
yes, sir. Correct.
So part-time lectureship, you have to then mention both these clauses. If you refer to only one clause, only half marks. 2.5 out of 5.
Oh, okay, sir.
Clear? This is an RTP
Clear.
November 21 question.
Okay.
Important. Similarly, if you accept the auditorship of a trust wherein you are either an employee of the trust or the trustee of the trust, there also you will be held GPM
The,
under clause 4.
yes, sir.
Clause 4 of part 1 of schedule 2.
Yes, sir.
So let's quickly see the question now. CA firm was appointed to evaluate cost of the products where one of the partner was non-executive director. What do you think, Kapil? CA firm was appointed to evaluate the cost of products where one of the partner was non-executive director. So my partner was already a director there. Can I be appointed to evaluate the cost of products? Yes, Kapil.
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
I can be employed because am I expressing any opinion here?
No, sir.
No. I am just evaluating cost of products. You could say cost optimization or any sort of thing. Is this a report or certificate on examination of financial statement? No, it's not an expression of the opinion. Therefore, yes, you can be employed or appointed to evaluate the cost of products. Are we clear? But you could not be appointed as an auditor where already one of your partner is a director, because that will be guilty under clause 11 of part 1 of schedule 1. Do you remember? If any of my partner is already interested in that entity, if any of my partner is already interested in that entity, then I cannot be an auditor of that entity.
Yes, sir.
Clause 11. You can be a director. You can be a director in that entity. I was just telling you vice versa, but it said what? You can be a director simpliciter. You can be a director other than MDWTD, except in the case where any of your partner is already interested in that entity as an auditor. So in this case, my partner is already interested as a director there. Therefore, who is also a partner, right? I am also partner in the firm. I cannot then be employed as an auditor or expressing of an opinion on the financial statement. Also, according to clause 4, I cannot express an opinion on the financial statement in which my firm, or my partner has a substantial interest. So here, it will be deemed that the partner has a substantial interest if he is a director as well. Now, wife had acquired share in the company with the name of CA as a joint holder. Tell me, Nikita, what should be the answer? Yes, Sagar.
Sir, in question, it's nowhere mentioned that his wife has substantial interest in the company,
Yeah.
but the
So
answer is written that relative has substantial interest. Is
yeah,
it assumed
you
or
can
what?
assume that it is having a substantial interest. Wife is having a substantial interest,
Okay, sir.
and give your answer accordingly. It might have been given in the question. I might not have included it in sort of one line question. I have summarized the question. That's why maybe. Yes, Nikita, tell me. CA appointed as statutory auditor of a company in which spouse, sister's husband has 75% holding. Is it covered under relative definition? Spouse, sister's husband मतलब मेरी पत्नी की बहन, मेरी कौन होगी, ननद? नहीं, क्या पता। उसका स्पाउस, स्पाउस सिस्टर स्पाउस, स्पाउस सिस्टर स्पाउस हैज 75% होल्डिंग, दैट मीन्स सब्सटेंशियल इंटरेस्ट तो है, सब्सटेंशियल इंटरेस्ट इज देयर, whether now is it relative or not? Yes, Nikita.
So I guess it is not covered in the definition of
So
that.
what is covered in the relative definition? Relative definition is in accordance with accounting standard 18, AS 18. You do you know AS 18 is on what? AS 18 is on related party. AS 18 is on related parties. And do you know according to AS 18 what is the definition of related party? It's very simple. My father, mother, ठीक है? My father, my mother, then definitely my spouse will be there as my relative. Then my beta beti, son and daughter, and of course my brother and sister. This is the definition of relative under AS 18. This is the definition of relative under AS 18. Now everywhere you can include stepfather, stepmother, stepbrother, stepsister, step step spouse नहीं होती ना, step spouse can't be there. Then stepson you can include, but not step daughter. Correct? Why? बेटी पराई धन है इसलिए. So just remember this, step daughter is not covered. Stepson, step father, stepmother, stepbrother, step sister, stepson is covered, and spouse is covered, but not stepdaughter. Daughter is covered. Now, do you know that there is one more relative definition given under clause 277 of Companies Act? I'm telling you this in advance as a heads up. I'll ask you later. It will come. It will come in which chapter? Relative definition will come as per 277. It is more or less same. More or less same. Just that again I'll draw different only. Father, mother is covered. Brother, sister is covered. Son, daughter is covered, and definitely your spouse will also be covered. And and their spouses, daughter, daughter spouse is also covered. Son spouse is also covered. That is the only difference. Clear? There also stepson, stepfather, stepmother, everyone is there, but not step daughter. So that is the difference. Spouse of son and spouse of daughter. My son's spouse and my daughter's spouse is also covered. So here what we have to see is the relative definition according to AS 18. AS 18. AS 18. Clear? So here it does not, it is not covered under
सर
AS 18 relative. Yeah.
वो रिलेटिव डेफिनेशन जो 2 क्लॉज 77 में थी
हाँ.
उसमें स्टेप फैमिली कवर्ड है
Step, yeah, stepfather, stepmother, stepson, stepbrother, stepsister is covered.
और स्टेप डॉटर नहीं है
हाँ.
और स्टेप डॉटर का हस्बैंड भी फिर ऑफ कोर्स नहीं होगा.
हाँ. Now come to chapter CA in practice appointed as director simpliciter after 1 year. He resigned as director and accepted position of statutory auditor. So you just come here. One point we missed. This last point. A member shall not accept the assignment of audit of a company. You shall not accept the audit of a company for a period of 2 years after the date of completion of his tenure as a director or resignation as a director. That means, suppose you were appointed as a director in 1st April 2015, you resigned on or you vacated your position as a director on 1st April 2022. Then for next 2 years till 1st April 2024, you cannot accept the position of audit for this company in which you were director. That means you resigned as a director and suppose you went to Big Four firm as a partner. Then this audit you cannot do. You cannot do. If you were already, before 2 years, you were already having a position of what? As a director. You were already having a position as a director. So after resigning as a director or after vacating the office of director, you have to wait for 2 years, cooling period of 2 years to accept the position as a as an auditor, to accept the position as an auditor. So do you think he will be guilty here and accepted the position of statutory auditor after 1 year of resignation? So yes, he will be held guilty, right? This is an exam question which came in December 2021 also. Now come to clause 5. Yes, Suneshwaran?
Sir, one doubt, sir.
Yeah.
If I express an opinion on the financial statement, after that I came to know that my relative has a substantial interest.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I will be executed.
Yeah, law does not give any excuse of non-awareness, right? That is what we have studied from CPT, Contract Act. You cannot be ignorance of law is not an excuse.
If they fail to disclose,
Again, you are violating the law.
okay, sir.
Anyway, you have to comply with all the specific regulations or law provisions, whatever is being mentioned.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
So, clause 5. Now, here what I told was this material fact, you were aware about this. This was known to you, but you did not disclose the same. You failed to disclose a material fact known to you, and this is not disclosed in a financial statement, but this disclosure in the financial statement was very, very much necessary so that to make that financial statement not misleading. Getting this? That you have not disclosed this material fact which was known to you and was not disclosed in the financial statement, but this disclosure was very much necessary in making such financial statement not misleading. You can just add here, I think it's not written, in making such financial statement not misleading. So for in order to make that financial statement not misleading, this disclosure was very much important, very much necessary, but you failed to disclose this material fact which was known to you, which you were concerned with that financial statement in your professional capacity. And therefore, in this case, you will be held GPM under clause 5 of part 1 of schedule 2. Now this line says what? That you do not have to say the, since this says what? Material fact, right? Material fact. So obviously we have to consider materiality. Materiality factor also has to be considered. What is material, what is not material? So it says that materiality could be something, could be material in accordance with balance sheet. If you see, so for balance sheet I could define materiality as 10% of total assets. 10% of total asset could be my one parameter of defining the materiality. Similarly, based on profit and loss, there could be a parameter to define materiality. For example, 1% of total revenue or 10% of profit and loss. This could also be a defining parameter for materiality. So it doesn't matter which parameter is it breaching. Even if it is breaching for balance sheet, even if it is breaching for profit and loss, or any, you will be that fact will be considered as a material fact. So you will have to consider both balance sheet as well as profit and loss level for your materiality determination. That is what it has to say. And again, financial statement here covers both reports and certificate issued to outside authorities. Now come to question just beside this. There is a question given. CA noticed large number of loans were given out of the trust to the employer in contravention to the rules of PF trust. So what happened is PF amount which is being deducted out of the salary of the employee is being deposited in a PF trust, right? Everything is being deposited. Now this amount has to be used for the purpose of investment or for the purpose of growth of this fund amount. Now without being aware about the same without employee being aware about the same, this PF amount were being contributed to the company as loans. Large number of loans were given out of the trust, this PF trust, which is not allowed, which is not allowed. Now, after becoming aware about the same, CA noticed this. So CA knew this. See, it is known to CA. Now he disclosed irregularities to trustees, but not to the subscribers. Who are the subscribers? The employee, right? Employee of the PF fund. So his duty was to report to the shareholders, report to the employees, report to the fund trustees, right? He reported to the trustees, but did not report the same to the subscribers. So it will be held GPM. He will be held guilty of professional misconduct because he failed to disclose the material fact known to him, which was disclosure of which was very much necessary in the financial statement, so as to make such financial statement not misleading, where in which he is concerned in professional capacity as reporting on the financial statement, right? So in this question, you will also refer to this case law, Kishori Lal Datta versus PK Mukherjee, because this is the question generally which comes from clause 5, and this comes, then you can also mention this case law. That is why it is better to learn this case law name. It is very easy also to remember this case law name. I'll tell you a trick how you can remember this. Kishori Lal Datta versus PK Mukherjee. So Kishori, one small girl Kishori having लाल दुपट्टा, ठीक है, किशोरी लाल दुपट्टा पी के मुकर गई, ठीक है, किशोरी wearing लाल दुपट्टा पी के मुकर गई. So after पी के short break. Okay, till clause 5 we have done. Can we at least complete part 1? I'll give the break now if you want, or you want to stop the class also at all. It's up to you if you can take. Now clause 6 leads to what? Failure to report a material misstatement which was known to you, and this material misstatement to appear in a financial statement with which he is concerned in a professional capacity. So there was a material misstatement which was reflected in a financial statement. Above in clause 5, what was happening? It was not being disclosed in the financial statement, but the disclosure of which was necessary in making such financial statement not misleading. Here it is being disclosed, but it is materially misstated. The stated amount is not correct, or there is a material misstatement, and this is known to you, but you are not reflecting or you are not disclosing the same to the shareholders or to the report readers. So in this case, you will be held guilty of clause 6. More or less, whenever the question comes from clause 6 or clause 5, you will mention both. Clause 5 and clause 6, you will mention both. So CA signed a balance sheet where assets were inflated 20%, which was known to him, as opposed to that question that we saw earlier. Remember, investment which was inflated from 25,000, it was inflated to 10 lakh. But there it wasn't being written that it was known to him. Here it is clearly mentioned that which was known to him. It was clearly mentioned that which was known to him. Therefore, what will come? Clause 5 and clause 6. Getting the difference. See, it is very easy to deal with all the clauses, but these differences is what we are here for, right? Because next time you should not get confused why we are applying not clause 2 and why we are applying clause 5. These are small points where you'll which will also help you to write the proper answer, correct answer referring to correct clause number. So small points, just remember this. So next question will be, CA was appointed to represent a case before tax authorities as representative. He submitted certain statements which was later found to be false and materially misstated. What do you think, Dhanlakshmi? CA was appointed to represent a case before tax authorities. And when I'm asking, please do not see the answer. Try to apply your mind first, then we'll of course see the answer, right? CA was appointed to represent a case before tax authorities as representative. Therefore I submitted all the statements, all the documents to the income tax department, and then it was later out found out to be materially misstated and false. What do you think, Dhanlakshmi?
No, sir.
No. Why?
No. So
What?
because it was like even he was not aware.
So do you think if I was aware here, then I'll be held guilty?
Yes, sir.
Again, you could avoid your or you could devoid yourself from being telling yourself as being aware, because this tells what? Disclosure in the financial statement. Disclosure in the financial statement. So you are expressing or giving your opinion in a sense and not disclosing the same in the financial statement. Here it relates to what? Statements which was submitted to income tax department. Just mere statements which was submitted to income tax department, you can clearly tell that whatever the client submitted to us, that only we have submitted. We have not examined the same. We will not examine, right? Whatever clients tells us, we'll report the same to the income tax department. We are not expressing our opinion. We are not seeing the requirements of AS India Schedule 3 Companies Act or everything, thereby examining the financial statement. We are not doing the same here. And therefore, for that reason, I will not be held guilty. Statements are based on the data provided by the management. CA had only submitted them acting on the instruction of the client as authorized person. So I will not be held guilty. And conclusion, you will write that this what we have written in remarks column. A company did not provide for depreciation. What do you think, Pooja? Quickly, quickly, fast. We have to cover till clause 10. Company did not provide for depreciation, Pooja.
Yes, sir. वो professional
I'm not able to hear. Can you speak a bit loud?
वो guilty होगा because ये fact auditor की hello
Yeah, can you speak again?
professional misconduct
It will be a misconduct, you are saying.
guilty
Why? Why, why,
fact
why?
fact should be disclosed in a report.
And why do you think is a material fact? Do you think it's a material fact?
Yes,
Why? Again?
as per Companies Act depreciation provide करना होगा.
Yeah, for in the Companies Act, depreciation is mandatory to charge. You cannot say that asset was not used, therefore we won't be applying any depreciation this year. Depreciation is mandatory to be applied every year once it is being put to use. Sorry, put to use for income tax, but purchased, right, for Companies Act. Allotment had been done beyond the authorized capital as on that date. That means what? Suppose authorized capital is for 1 CR and issued capital or paid up capital is about say 5 CR. Do you think this is a material fact known to you and should be disclosed? Right? Yes. This is obviously known to you and should have been disclosed by you in making such financial statement not misleading. So clause 5 and clause 6. Clause 7 we have already covered, does not exercise due diligence or is grossly negligent in the conduct of your professional duties. Therefore, you will be held GPM under clause 7 of part 1 of schedule 2. What do you mean by due diligence and what do you mean by gross negligence? It is covered here. You can see due diligence means to do your work with diligence, with proper manner, with taking all the due necessary precautions and care, right? And grossly negligence means high degree of negligence. That means obviously this should have been done but you did not do so. Example I told you of about, suppose banker certificate, you did not obtain the banker certificate for verifying bank balance, right? So that is obviously a grossly negligent procedures being performed on your part. You could have easily obtained. This is the basic procedure, audit procedure need to be adhered to, and you did not do the same. So high degree of negligence arising out of recklessness or deliberate failure to act honestly or reasonable on a matter. Then clause 8 also I told you, failure to obtain sufficient information which is necessary for expression of an opinion, or its exceptions are so material to negate the expression of the opinion. So let's quickly see the question from clause 7 and clause 8. certified the circulation figures. I told you this circulation figure, magazine circulation figure based on MIS report without examining the books of account. Which clause?
Clause 8.
Clause 8. And along with that, which clause will always
Clause
come along with clause 2 and clause
clause
7?
7
Clause 7.
and clause 2.
Clause 2 won't be
Clause
necessary
2 will
because this is not a report on examination of financial statement. It's just a circulation figure. I told you, right? Magazine circulation amount is a requirement supposed by magazine organization. So this is not a report on examination of financial statement.
Yes, sir.
Statutory auditor failed to detect certain irregularities at one of the branches of the organization. What do you think? Statutory auditor of suppose of the entire company head office, and our branches are also there. There we have appointed branch auditor who are not the same as our HO auditor, and there the branch auditor failed to. That means statutory auditor failed to detect certain irregularities which were there at the branch of the organization. Do you think statutory auditor will be held GPM? Yes or no? Mehak is saying yes.
Branch auditor has its separate auditors. Sorry,
Yeah.
branches has on its separate auditors. Then statutory auditor shall not be guilty
Why so again?
because branches had its own auditors.
So
So
again the
the
reason could
liability.
be rooted back to the same point. A brother can rely on his brother, right? CA can rely on his
Yeah.
another brother chartered accountant that is also provided in SA 600 other auditor. That means you can rely on other auditor done by other audits being done by other auditor. That means branch auditor. You can rely on the report on the same. And if the branch auditor is not able to detect material misstatements, then you will not be held guilty. Clear?
Yes, sir. Right.
Statutory auditor it's not the responsibility of statutory auditor to go to each and every branch and detect all the material misstatements. And for that purpose only we have employed what branch auditors as well.
Right, sir.
Now during search under section 132, that is income tax raid, found two sets of book. Income tax found two sets of book. So these are two sets of books. One set which recorded income correctly. This was correct set of book. Another one showed limited income only. You issued report based on the second one. Do you think I'll be held GPM? Yes. Quick. 5 minutes left. Do you think I'll be held GPM?
Yes,
Shefali,
he's guilty. Yes, he's guilty, but in which clause I could not recollect it.
which clause do you think he'll be guilty then?
Clause 7, maybe.
So here you have to give the diplomatic answer. You will say that since the books of accounts which the client gave it to us, we examined those books of account. How would we know that there are missing entries? If the entry is not been done by the accountant, not being done by the client, how will we know that they have performed the transaction? Right? So if your tick mark is being shown on the second set of books only, then you won't be held guilty. But suppose this book is also examined by you, and how can you ascertain that? Suppose your tick mark, audit tick mark, these are the audit tick marks, right, is being also reflected in first set of books as well. Then it means what, you are aware about the fact that there are limited entries in the second book, and still you issued the opinion based on second set of book, and therefore then in that case you will be held GPM. So if auditor is aware of the two set of books, he will be guilty, else if not, then he will not be held guilty. Clear? Yes or no?
Sir, in which clause he will be guilty?
Here only clause
If
8 and clause 7. Clause 8, because he did not obtain sufficient information, he could have obtained all the information with respect to limited entries, with respect to missing entries. And clause 7, because of grossly negligent performance of his duties. And clause 2, without examination of financial statement, he expressed opinion on the same. CA did not complete his work on time to enable client to submit with statutory requirements. That means CA is not able to complete his work on time. I told you if CA is not able to complete tax audit within due date, he'll be held guilty under Schedule 2 Part 1 Clause 7,
7.
grossly negligent,
Grossly
right?
negligence.
And if he is a
Sir,
Gunda auditor, Gunda, जो करना है कर ले, audit नहीं करूंगा, then
then also in clause 7.
no, I told you na, then he will be held guilty of other misconduct under Clause 2 of Part 4 of Schedule 1. I told you if you, after acceptance of the fees, you refuse to do the audit. Last point, go to last point, illustrative example, last point. After acceptance of
Yes,
receipt
sir.
of the fees, you denied to do the audit. Gunda auditor, I told the example, right?
Yes, sir. Right.
So in that case, you will be held guilty of other misconduct under clause 2 of part 1, part 4 of schedule 1. And in this case, you will be held guilty if you are not able to complete the audit in due time, then you will be held guilty of guilty of professional misconduct under schedule 2 part 1 clause 7. After the audit was completed, however, the fraud was discovered by the chief accountant and indicates that auditor did not exercise proper skill and care and performed his work in a desultory and haphazard manner.
Guilty in clause 7.
Guilty in
Grossly
clause 7,
negligent.
grossly negligent, right? Because here easily ascertainable that auditor did not exercise proper skill and care. CAP, Chartered Accountant Practice, appointed to carry balance sheet audit. Internal auditors detected certain irregularities at one of the branches of the organization which statutory auditor had failed to detect. Now,
Now also guilty in clause 7.
again, statutory auditor is not being responsible to detect material misstatement in branches. Here, statutory auditor has been appointed to carry out the balance sheet audit. He is not required to check the matters relating to branch in depth. That will be performed by the branch auditors. If they are the branch auditors, then they will be, of course, held guilty. But if they are not the branch auditors, then they are not responsible for going into in depth about the branches of the organization. Clear? Same as above. Just that
Clear.
here instead of branch auditor, they have mentioned internal auditor reports had certain detected certain irregularities. But those irregularities has to be read by whom? Branch auditors. Branch auditor will read the internal audit report of branches and then they will accordingly give their opinion and which will be took care of by the statutory auditor. But since branch auditor did not took the responsibility, it's not the responsibility of the statutory auditor to go in depth about the branches. Clause 9. Clause 9 states that if you fail to invite attention to any material departure from generally accepted audit procedure. What is generally accepted audit procedures applicable? Audit procedures, generally accepted audit procedures are what? Standards, right? Standards on auditing essays. So if you fail to comply with any of the procedure which is required by the standards on audit, suppose if you fail to obtain external confirmation in accordance with SA 505 and you did what? Gave your opinion as qualified opinion. But standard 505 clearly states that if you are not able to obtain external confirmation, you need to perform alternative audit procedures. And they have mentioned alternative audit procedures as a, for example, if you are not able to obtain external confirmation of debtors, then you can see what? By performing alternative audit procedures, example, like you could verify the next 3 months transaction, that whether have we received any amount from the debtors. Suppose debtor of 1 lakh and we in the month of June we also find out that debtor we received 1 lakh from the debtors, then that means what? Yes, debtor was correctly specified as on 31st March, it is correct. So alternative audit procedures can be applied. Alternative audit procedures can be applied, but instead of that you directly qualified the same without applying alternative audit procedure, then in that particular case you need to invite attention. And if you do not invite attention to any material departure from any standards on auditing, that means you are not able to obtain external confirmation and you also were not able to obtain you were not able to apply your alternative audit procedures like this, then you need to invite attention. That means clearly emphasize on the same why there was a material departure from the standards. We were not having this audit evidence, we were not able to obtain this and that. You will clearly have to properly tell this with reasons. You cannot just simply qualify. So fine, we'll then continue from tomorrow. We'll try to finish off with clause schedule 2, and then अपना sections बचे. Sections are left of Chartered Accountants Act 1949, and then Council General Guidelines are left, Ethical Standard Board decisions are left, and lastly your code of conduct, code of ethics, sorry, code of ethics. So code of ethics, can I give you one homework? If you can go through code of ethics, because there is no point as such, you can easily go through the same. Go through from here. Fundamental principles, you are already aware about this. IOCP2, integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, professional competence and due care, and professional skepticism. If you can go to professional behavior and these threats, these two topics, just read and come. Okay, we'll then quickly go through the same again. Till here, Chartered Accountants Act 1949, till just before this you will go through till page number 359. That means till safeguards, threats, evaluation of threats, all the 5 threats, and all the 5 principles of code of ethics. 5 principles of code of ethics, 5 threats: self evaluation, self intimidation, advocacy threat, all those 5 threats, how to evaluate those threats, how to eliminate those threats, what action can you take to eliminate those threats, and lastly safeguards to apply, so that we don't come across any such threats in future. This till there you learn, and we'll try to finish off professional ethics by tomorrow. I won't be having much time. Let's see, by day after tomorrow, first half we'll try to finish, and in second half you will be having tests on tax audit and professional ethics. ठीक है? So prepare accordingly, revise tax audit, revise professional ethics. I want each and everyone to take this test sincerely and perform to their best. Take this as if your exam is going to happen. ठीक है? We'll discuss the test on Saturday or on Sunday then accordingly. ठीक है? So see you. Take care. Bye bye. We'll meet tomorrow 7.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
Welcome.